Chapter 307. Being bold. As the two men saw the girl speak, the sturdy-looking man took a look at the beautiful face of hers and immediately stopped right where he stood. Quickly regaining his awareness, he spoke with a depressed expression, "The miss is quite lively. I've traveled for 30 years and yet I've never seen such a vivid woman before. Just what might be your name?" "I discovered this cave personally and coincidentally someone came in when I just left it." "Even then, you are asking me to leave when it should really be you." Then, the man looked around the cave only to quickly discover that one of the people there was the one they had seen not too long ago, Jian Chen. When he saw him, he broke out into a smile. "How coincidental, fellow brother, we found each other once again." Jian Chen looked at both the middle-aged man and the sturdy-looking man with a sharp stare only to discover that the both of them were Earth Saint Masters. While those who could make the breakthrough from the Great Saint Master realm to the Earth Saint Master realm was only 10%, those who could become an Earth Saint Master before the age of 50 was a 1% chance. Several 100,000 men were participating in this competition, and only a small number of them, that wouldn't exceed the triple digits, would be an Earth Saint Master. Now this part of the competition was finally reaching a conclusion. By this point, the remaining few people that were completely intact were almost all Earth Saint Masters while a small minority were Great Saint Masters. So it was very rare that two Great Saint Masters would suddenly appear as they did right in front of Jian Chen. Without even waiting for Jian Chen's response, the sturdy man walked over to the side of the caves and sat down with a smile. "Fellow brother, since you have two injured men with you, I won't drive you out. We should all protect each other after all. Since everyone should be lively right now, let's talk about something, don't you think so, Yunzheng?" The sturdy man asked the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man gave a small smile before saying, "Signorin is correct. If no one has any objections, then we should all rest. If we come across any piece of trouble, then we can help each other out. After all, the more people the stronger we are." The middle-aged man sat down next to the burly man and began to look at the four people in front of him. The girl continued to maintain her icy facade as she stared at the two men dangerously. Despite the looks of goodwill on their faces, she didn't plan on dropping her guard. Looking at the girl, Jian Chen hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. "That's fine. We'll share this cave for now, but remember this, if someone dares to harm us in any way, then do not blame me for being impolite." With that, Jian Chen's eyes frosted over as a dangerous gleam entered them when he said his last sentence. Hearing this, the middle-aged man to the side of the burly one grew uncomfortable for a moment. For a Grand Earth Saint Master like him be threatened by a 20-year-old child, that didn't seem right. With it as is, the man could conclude that Jian Chen wasn't an ordinary person. For a person to remain with their space belt for this long in an intense massacre of a competition without any major injuries was commendable. To also look at the two of them with such an arrogant expression, this was someone a person could rely on. The man didn't seem to hear Jian Chen's threat and began to laugh. "I am called Signorin, the man to my side is called Yunzheng. Fellow brother, what is your name?" Seeing the simple and straightforward manner of the burly man, Jian Chen immediately concluded that this man was honest. These type of people normally had no machinations hidden away within them, and even if they had, they wouldn't act upon them. Memories from long ago were suddenly recalled back into his mind as Jian Chen thought about his eldest brother Changyang Hu and Tai Ta from Kargath Academy. These two were very similar to the Signorin in front of him. Because of this, Jian Chen's impression of him was decent. "I am called Jian Chen." Jian Chen spoke with a friendly smile at Signorin. The girl who was sitting on a rock stared at the smiling Jian Chen with a complex look. Not too long after, the cold hard look on her face receded away and was replaced with a rarely seen gentle look. Because of his genes and his cultivation methods, Jian Chen's appearance was exceptionally handsome and could even be said to be perfect. His smile could stun anyone, and there was not a single girl under the heavens that could resist. Even the girl not too far away from him had been dazed a bit. Quickly, she recovered herself and tore her eyes away from Jian Chen to look elsewhere. Jian Chen, I can see that you are quite young, perhaps not even 25 years old. Signorin asked. Jian Chen gave a small smile but didn't respond to him. Signorin looked toward the yellow-clothed girl and continued to ask, "Little girl, you've grown to be quite beautiful, even I've grown quite astounded. What is your name?" With a snort, the girl turned away from him and leaned against the wall to look at the dusky cave roof. With an embarrassed laugh, the burly man turned to Jian Chen for help. "Signorin, don't bother, her temper is quite bad," Jian Chen smiled. Even he didn't know the girl's name other than the time when Xiangran had called out to her as Luan Air. Hearing Jian Chen's words, the girl immediately whirled around with a furious expression, "You're the one with a bad temper." Signorin stealthily took a look at the girl with a hand scratching his nose and thought to himself, "It seems Jian Chen is correct. While this girl is quite lively, her temper is equally large. This isn't a person we should offend." Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as he looked on with a displeased expression. Then, he took out a few space belts with dried blood and a space ring. "Whoa, Jian Chen, you've so many space belts. There's even blood on some of them, did you steal those?" Signorin looked at Jian Chen with a look of shock and his mouth wide open. Even Yunzheng, who was sitting right next to Signorin, looked at Jian Chen with some shock and a strange look in his eyes. Jian Chen laughed at Signorin's words and replied, "Is it considered stealing if they tried first?" Under the amazed eyes of Signorin and Yunzheng, Jian Chen began to take out and classify the items within the space belt and space ring. In total, there were 4 purple cards, 3 Class 5 monster cores, 200 Class 4 monster cores, 500 Class 3 monster cores. There was a small mountain of money that shined with purple, gold, and even silver lights. There was also a small pile of around 400 tokens lying about. Seeing the pile of black-colored tokens, Signorin's eyes immediately zoomed in on it and nearly began to drool as he muttered, "Wah, there's so many tokens." Even Yunzheng had been moved by such a sight as his heart began to beat wildly. Jian Chen didn't lift his head up from the pile and began to divide the items into 2 smaller piles. Storing them within a space belt, he handed them to the girl and said, "Take it, these are yours." The girl stared fiercely at Jian Chen as she took the 200 tokens from within the space belt into her own. Then, she threw the space belt back at Jian Chen and said, "The other things in here are of no value to me." Without any more objections, Jian Chen took the remaining items into his own space belt. The 2 purple cards, 2 Class 5 monster cores, 100 Class 4 monster cores, and the pile of money, he didn't think that the girl would be so rich that she would disregard this wealth of items. Signorin stared at the space belt thrown at Jian Chen with some disbelief and swallowed the saliva building up in his throat with some difficulty. Turning to look at the handsome Jian Chen, his bald head thumped against the walls of the cave continuously in regret. Why couldn't I have been born a few years later? Ah! Why couldn't I have been born handsome? I've only just figured it out. If one is born handsome and popular, even the beautiful women will take the initiative to give the good items to you. Signorin continued to mutter to himself as if no one was around. The girl sitting on top of the rock began to heave up and down in anger while trying to pretend to ignore the man. But her eyes continued to shoot fire as she stared maliciously at him. Sitting right next to Signorin, Yunzheng looked at Jian Chen and the girl with a sluggish look. Seeing how the girl acted shocked his heart. 2 purple cards, 2 Class 5 monster cores, 100 Class 4 monster cores and a large sum of money was not an easy thing to give away. This sight was far too much for him. The items in that space belt were an abundant amount of wealth and would even tempt an Earth Saint Master. It would appear that despite the age of these two, they are not people of ordinary status. To be able to toss around a Class 5 monster core, they must belong to powerful people and hold powerful positions. The man thought to himself. Chapter 308, Yunzheng's shock. Time flew by. Jian Chen and the group of people camped in the cave for 7 days. In that time, Jian Chen, Signorin, and Yunzheng continued to talk among each other in a good-natured manner. The yellowed-clothed girl rarely spoke. Even now, Jian Chen still didn't know her name. Qin Zhao's injuries continued to slowly heal, and while the cut mark on his waist wasn't completely healed, a small scab was already forming. With the help of some medicine, another 10 days would be needed before he could walk. Even Qin Zhu's injuries had healed sufficiently enough for him to fight. With his valiant strength, it would take another few days for him to heal completely. Within the dark cave, the fire that had been burning incessantly danced slowly. By the side, the sitting Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes and looked around the room. Qin Zhu, the girl, and Signorin were all sitting in a meditative position, and Qin Xiao was still laying on the stretcher with his eyes closed in a sleeping position. Only Yunzheng was not in the cave. Jian Chen restoked the flames before walking out of the caves. A while after he had left, the yellow-clothed girl opened her eyes from her meditative position and scoured the place. Then, closing her eyes, she went still again. Arriving at the cave's entrance, Jian Chen began to take in the fresh air of the outside world before closing his eyes in a pleased manner. The ventilation within the cave wasn't the best, and the stuffy, hot air within the cave caused everyone inside to feel uncomfortable. Taking in another deep breath, he climbed down the mountain slope to wander about. Since he had to protect Qin Xiao, Jian Chen didn't dare go far. Until Qin Xiao was fully healed, Jian Chen didn't plan on leaving this place. If they were to travel with an immobile Qin Xiao and came across a strong individual, then it would be very problematic. Even if he wasn't afraid for himself, but if the target was Qin Xiao, Jian Chen would be stuck in a problematic situation. In this short amount of time, Jian Chen had collected a total of at least 1,000 tokens. The competition had only required a total of 500 tokens in order to pass, so Jian Chen was well above what was needed. The only thing left for him to do was survive for the rest of the time limit. Jian Chen leaped into a 30-meter tall tree and sat on top of a tree branch. Laying down on it, his head continued to think about the Ming Dong who was still within the hidden shrine. I wonder how Ming Dong is doing. His ancestor was good friends with the Shrine Lord. He will definitely help out Ming Dong. When I see him again, he'll definitely be vastly different. This gathering of the mercenaries is the easiest way to obtain a heaven-tier battle skill. As long as I try my hardest, then I will definitely obtain it. When I am strong enough, I will be able to return to the Jessan Kingdom and settle my debt with the Huayan sect. With a heaven-tier battle skill, the Chongyang clan will definitely increase in power as well. Muttering to himself, Jian Chen continued to lay about on the tree as he stared up with a determined look. Shortly after, Jian Chen let out a breath of air with a worried look. The Jessan Kingdom is currently in a bad situation. The neighboring 4 kingdoms are uniting against them. Within 2 years, there will definitely be a war between the two sides. Before that happens, I must increase my strength as much as possible and be of some help. As Jian Chen continued to plan for the future on top of his tree branch, the shadows of 3 men quickly flew toward his direction with the speed of an arrow. From the 3 men, the frontmost person was especially pale and drenched with blood. His originally white robes were heavily stained with blood as the 2 men behind him chased him with their saint weapons ready to strike. Sensing the 3 men, Jian Chen pushed aside the foliage in order to see just what was happening from his overhead perch. Just as he looked at the 3 men, he revealed a surprised look before smiling. I didn't think that he would be chased in such a manner. It seems that he plans to bring them back to our campground. With that, Jian Chen leaped down from his tree branch and stood right next to a tree in front of the 3 men. From the 3 men, the person running away was the same person from the caves, Yunzheng. At this moment, Yunzheng was in a miserable state and had long since lost his svelte attitude. The moment Yunzheng noticed Jian Chen, an indescribable light flashed in his eyes before increasing his speed a bit. Flying toward Jian Chen, the pale Yunzheng began to breathe heavily as he took refuge behind him. Brother Jian Chen. Let's hurry up and run. These two men are too strong, let's go and get Senior to help deal with them. Jian Chen shook his head with a smile. My brother is currently resting inside, I don't wish to shock him. But, Yunzheng held some reluctance in his face, but he said no more after that as Jian Chen held his hand up, I'll deal with this matter here. Hearing Jian Chen's calm attitude, Yunzheng slowly began to calm himself down before standing quietly behind Jian Chen. He wanted to see just how strong of an Earth Saint Master Jian Chen was. The two men chasing after Yunzheng came to a stop several meters away from Jian Chen. The two looked to be around 40 years old and both wore blue robes that did nothing to hide their bulging muscles. One of the men was quite short and looked to be around 5 feet tall with dark skin as black as coal. The other man was rather skinny looking and had an average appearance with a bent nose. On the left side of his face there were several intersecting scars that destroyed his face. His face was rather terrifying to look at, but it also increased his intimidation factor. The two men sized up Jian Chen as they looked at him. Giving each other a small look, one of the two immediately walked up to Jian Chen before pushing him out of the way. Jian Chen wrapped his hands against his chest before smiling at the two, fellow brothers, what might you two be doing? Seeing the expression on Jian Chen's face, the short one began to feel annoyed at him. Without another thought, he glowered at both Jian Chen and Yunzheng, if you know what's good for you, hand over your space belt at once or else, humph. Or else what? Jian Chen continued to smile. The short one glared at Jian Chen with an even more cruel stare before roaring, or else you two will die here today. In an instant, Jian Chen released a large amount of killing intent, is that so? Then allow me to send you on your way. With that, Jian Chen disappeared from view before reappearing in front of the short man. At the same time, his light wind sword immediately came into view before the chilling cold sword Qi stabbed at the short man with blinding speed. The short man hadn't expected for Jian Chen to make such a sudden move so quickly. Before he could even react or dodge the sword strike, the silver sword had already stabbed straight through his throat. Jian Chen's sword was far too fast, in an instant, the short man had been caught off guard and killed. Even as an Earth Saint Master, it was still impossible for him to dodge Jian Chen's strike. Without stopping, Jian Chen immediately pulled out his bloody sword from the short man's throat before disappearing from view once more. In an instant, his sword flashed as it flew at the other Earth Saint Master. At that moment, the Earth Saint Master hadn't reacted yet as he stared in horror at the incoming Jian Chen. Then, it was with a serious look that he had realized this youth he had disregarded earlier was in fact a tiger wearing a sheepskin. Ha! The man roared as his saint force exploded out of his body. The saint weapon in his hand began to flood with a blue-colored light as he slashed at Jian Chen. Jian Chen's figure blurred as he dodged the other man's sword. His light wind sword became a silver glow of light that flew at his throat. Reacting quickly, the man tilted his head to dodge Jian Chen's strike and allowed the sword to slip past him. However, the sword swept past his neck and a small cut appeared on his throat. As the man was starting to rejoice, he suddenly felt a stinging sensation on his neck. Before he could even look down and see what happened, his head was immediately cut off. It spun through the air before falling back down to the ground as his headless body fell to the ground with blood flying everywhere. These two men were strong enough to force an Earth Saint Master like Yunzheng to flee, but in an instant, they had been killed in a single strike by Jian Chen. That made Yunzheng open his eyes wide in disbelief and shock at what had just happened. This type of strength, was this really something a 20-year-old youth should be able to possess? Standing to the side of Jian Chen, Yunzheng tried to breathe in and out in order to calm himself. Although he knew that Jian Chen was already an extremely terrifying Earth Saint Master, he didn't think that the two men that were chasing after him would be dealt with in a single strike. Despite this fight happening right in front of his eyes, Yunzheng still couldn't believe it and thought he was dreaming. This was an illusion and not reality. It completely toppled over what he knew as true. As a traveler in the continent who had painfully cultivated for 30 to 40 years before finally making a breakthrough to become an Earth Saint Master before the age of 50, this was already an achievement that could be considered to be a genius. Those who became an Earth Saint Master before the age of 50 were all well-known experts and geniuses of cultivation with a bright future. Right now, 2 Earth Saint Masters were killed by a youth that wasn't even 25 years old. This was a massive blow to Yunzheng, and as such, this was the very first time that he had felt that this world was truly unfair and absurd. Chapter 309, Immortal's Cave. After dealing with the 2 men, Jian Chen collected the space belts of both Earth Saint Masters. Turning their bodies aside, Jian Chen didn't see anything else of value on their bodies. While these 2 were Earth Saint Masters, aside from their robes and space belts, there wasn't any space rings to be seen. Space rings were treasures within the Tianyuan continent that were symbols of status and power. Although Earth Saint Masters were qualified to have a space ring, not all of them had one. Jian Chen looked at the bloody Yunzheng and spoke to him, "Let us go back and treat your injuries. Walking out here with injuries isn't a safe thing to do." The 2 then left the area. Yunzheng watched the slowly disappearing back of Jian Chen with some remaining shock. Before he had even blinked, Jian Chen had killed 2 Earth Saint Masters. Something like this would give him an everlasting impression of Jian Chen. Could he be one of the rumored geniuses? Yunzheng sighed before running to catch up with the receding figure of Jian Chen. The 2 figures returned to the cave where the bloody figure of Yunzheng attracted the attention of everyone. The one friendliest to Yunzheng, Senioren, stood straight up with a furious expression. "Yunzheng, what bastard did this to you? Tell me, and I'll go tear them limb from limb." Seeing just how concerned Senioren was, Yunzheng smiled faintly. "I had some bad luck. When I was hunting, I came across 2 Earth Saint Masters. But fortunately, Brother Jian Chen came along and killed them both." Hearing Yunzheng, Qin Xiao, who was lying nearby, stared at Jian Chen with a surprised look before turning suspicious and doubtful at Yunzheng's words. "Jian Chen, is what he says true? You were able to take down 2 Earth Saint Masters by yourself?" Qin Xiao spoke with an expecting tone. Sitting nearby, Qin Zhu's ears shook slightly, but his eyes didn't open. Jian Chen nodded his head, but gave no response. Qin Xiao took on a pleasantly surprised look as he spoke with some excitement. "Jian Chen, just how did you grow to become so amazing in such a short amount of time? When we first initially fought, I knew that you were already amazing, but I didn't think that you would be able to kill an Earth Saint Master so easily. That is because during the time I left the Tianqin clan, I managed to make a breakthrough to become an Earth Saint Master." Jian Chen replied. Hearing that, Qin Zhu's eyes snapped open as he looked at Jian Chen with shock. Even as his eyes opened, he remained as still as a statue. "So it was like this," Qin Xiao spoke with some understanding. Time went by in a flash. Soon there was only half a month remaining in the competition. In that time, Jian Chen had rarely ventured out and spent the majority of his time within the cave and silently protected Qin Xiao. The yellow-clothed girl had used her Solunar Bow to make a new cave for her to privately cultivate. Senioren and Yunzheng both constantly walked outside and came back to the cave with bruised bodies the majority of the time. A few of the times, they had been chased down by several strong Earth Saint Masters back home, where Jian Chen would promptly deal with them. The power that Jian Chen would constantly display always reminded Senioren and Yunzheng of his strength. Those of the same cycle were miles away from Jian Chen's level. Second and third cycle Earth Saint Masters were not an opponent for Jian Chen at all. Not too long after, Jian Chen had unconsciously become the pillar for Yunzheng and Senioren. After several more days, Qin Zhao's body had been completely healed. Almost as if he had provoked Jian Chen's ire, Qin Zhao immediately set himself about to cultivate as soon as he was healed with the assistance of monster cores in order to reach the Earth Saint Master realm as soon as possible. As for Qin Zhu, who had healed even earlier, it was almost as if he cherished words like gold. Ever since he had met Jian Chen up until now, he had never said more than 10 words total. This had made him even more quiet than Katafi back in Wake City. In the quiet cave, only the sounds of the crackling fire could be heard inside as the light constantly flickered. Jian Chen sat in a meditative position in a corner of the cave with a Class 5 monster core in his hand in order to absorb it. With the Jessen kingdom on the verge of danger and the Changyang clan as well, he had to hurry up and increase his strength. There was no time to squabble around and waste time. Within the dark cave, everyone was cultivating, causing the leaking energy from the monster cores to gather within the cave. It was as if the cave was originally filled with this energy and was paradise for cultivators. At this time, the sounds of rapid footsteps could be heard. Jian Chen's ears shook slightly from the sound, but he made no movements to get up from his position. The footsteps grew closer as Signorin and Yunzheng both entered. Jian Chen, I've news, good news. I've heard from someone on the outside that there is a cave to the south of the forest that used to have a senior cultivator in it. There's treasure inside, and I'm willing to bet there's at least one heaven-tier battle skill. Signorin spoke out hurriedly. The moment Jian Chen heard the words, heaven-tier battle skill, he instantly snapped open his eyes. Although everyone was cultivating within the cave, in this sort of condition, they remained vigilant to the outside world. Not even the subtle and sudden gust of wind would be able to escape their notice. Qin Zhao's eyes widened as he said, heaven-tier battle skill? Are you sure that's right? What if some enemy was trying to announce false news and later set up a huge trap for everyone? Signorin shook his head, that I don't know. But many people are already heading on over there. I've heard that even the 5 experts are going there. 5 experts? What 5 experts? Qin Zhao questioned. The 5 experts are men with a very well-known reputation and are also the strongest men around. In a short amount of time, practically everybody and everyone knows their names. Yunzheng spoke out to Jian Chen. While he knew Jian Chen was strong, he didn't know whether or not he was stronger than the 5 experts. Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. Who are the 5 experts and what are their names? They are called Qin Ji, Dugu Feng, Tian Muling, Shi Xiangran and Jieda Wukong. TL note, Qin Ji is not from the Tianqin clan. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes slightly at the mention of one of the names as he muttered, I've no idea that he would covet these treasures or even be called one of the 5 experts. Jian Chen, shall we go or stay? Qin Zhao spoke, clearly showing that Jian Chen was the leader. Jian Chen hummed to himself before saying, we are going. Standing up, he spoke again, there's no time to waste, we have to go now. There's only 15 days of the competition remaining. Afterward, Jian Chen led Signorin, Yunzheng, Qin Zhu and Qin Zhao out of the cave while the longbow girl coincidentally flew out from her cave as well to follow. I've heard there is a heaven-tier battle skill in the southern caves. We're going to go investigate, do you want to come along? Jian Chen asked the girl. For a moment, the girl's eyes rested upon Jian Chen before nodding slightly without any more words. This time, we may come across our dear old friend, you should prepare yourself. Jian Chen said. With that, the 6 people flew out of the caves toward the south. On the way, Jian Chen noticed plenty of people rushing the south as well. With information about a heaven-tier battle skill being left behind in a senior cultivator's cave, every single person was rushing on over. These men were primarily great saint masters with a small bag to hold their possessions on their backs. Their space belts had long since been taken from them aside from a few sets of clothes and food. For these men without tokens, the Earth Saint Masters wouldn't bother them any longer unless there was some sort of deep grievances they had between each other. So these great Saint Masters could travel on the road without any major fears. Occasionally, there would several fights that broke out among foes, but those did not impede Jian Chen's group at all. Many of those who saw Jian Chen's group were quite smart. When they saw the colorful clothes and the space belts that swayed with their bodies every step, each one of them could guess that the people with Jian Chen were all extremely strong. They traveled for 5 days when Jian Chen and the group finally reached a dense forest. In this location, there were several groups of competitors that were all here to see if the information was accurate or not. I've heard that there are several extremely strong magical beasts guarding the cave. Even the 5 experts and around 30 Earth Saint Masters fought several times without a chance of success of entering the cave. That's right, I've heard there were several battles, and some of the Earth Saint Masters already died. Only 3 of the 5 experts still remain untouched. The magical beasts guarding the cave are too strong. If it goes on like this, then I'm afraid no one will be able to enter the cave before the time is up. Nothing is guaranteed just yet. Right now the secret of this place is already leaked. Haven't you seen the never-ending stream of people coming here? Just wait for the 5 experts to all assemble, then they'll be able to enter. Chapter 310, Gathering of the 5 Experts. 1. By the time Jian Chen had arrived, information of the cave had already propagated throughout the area. By now, Jian Chen could confirm that while there was no confirmation of a heaven-tier battle skill inside the cave, the very existence of the cave was real. Jian Chen didn't bother to step right in front of this crowd and immediately led his group past them and into the forest. Hearing the news from everyone else, Jian Chen had learned that the location of the Immortal's cave was in the depths of the forest. Because there had already been countless of people here, the forests had the obvious distinction of what directions people had traveled in. Jian Chen began to follow the popular path for another 4 hours before finally coming to a man-made spot of flattened ground. There were plenty of men gathered here. Around 300 men were formed in groups and several tents were scattered about. From the outside, one could see several men lying about within the tents to rest. All over the area, there were plenty of people sitting on the tree branches eating and drinking while others were resting. There were several Earth Saint Masters. A quick count estimated there to be below 40. There were several bandaged Great Saint Masters and only a few of them still had a space belt. The people in this area all seemed as if they had reached a peaceful agreement to not fight with each other or grab at their tokens. It was rather peaceful here with no one causing a disturbance. Let's go see what's up front. Jian Chen spoke to the people by his side as they moved forward. Jian Chen's group had attracted the attention of many people as everyone stared at their brightly dressed group. However, not a single person came to accost them. That was because the experts of the crowd could detect that this group had 3 Earth Saint Masters and thus saw no need to get into some sort of conflict. No one in this crowd wanted to offend a group with 3 Earth Saint Masters for no reason. Jian Chen and the group of 5 continued on when all of a sudden, they heard the animalistic sounds of a magical beast. Straight after the sound, an insanely strong amount of energy rippled through the air and caused the entire earth to tremble. The countless trees up ahead of Jian Chen could be seen slightly uprooting from the ground thanks to the energy before flying straight into the air. Ahead of them, several shadows of gargantuan beasts could be seen flying at full speed toward them with a heavy presence that made it difficult to breathe. Jian Chen's expression turned dark as he held out his hand to the people behind him. "Get back, now." Without hesitation, the group flew backward in an attempt to return to the forest where the flat clearing was. Just as Jian Chen and his group ran back to the clearing, a group of tattered men followed behind Jian Chen from the direction of the magical beasts. There was a total of 12 men. Among the group, there was a 28-year-old youth that was similar to Ming Dong in age. This youth wore blue robes and carried a 2-meter-long fire-like sword that towered over his head. There were another 4 30-year-old men with rather handsome appearances. The rest were all 40 years old around with determined looks on their faces. Within this group, there were some people with blood dripping down their lips and had pale faces due to their injuries. This group of people had attracted the attention of everyone there. As 300 pairs of eyes landed on this group, everyone began to chatter among themselves. It seems this group lost again. AI, the guardians to the cave are too strong. Just how could the guardian magical beasts to the immortal cave be that easy to deal with? Without the 5 experts along with every single Earth Saint Masters combined together to deal with these magical beasts, then we would only just be wasting our energy. Just hold on, the magical beasts here are too strong. I can only guess that they are already at the class 6 level. Only the combined power of the 5 experts would be enough to fight these magical beasts. How unfortunate, the 5 experts are all Earth Saint Masters. If we had a Heaven Saint Master, then entering the cave would have been easy. Seeing the youth with a long sword on his back, the girl's eyes gained a dangerous gleam as she spoke. That's a ruler armament. Jian Chen grew surprised as his eyes zoomed in on the fire sword on the youth's back before gradually turning serious. He was well familiar with a ruler armament now and knew that they originated from the remnants of a saint ruler's saint weapon. The remaining amount of energy within the weapons was enough to make a Heaven Saint Master shudder. However, a ruler's armament wasn't something anyone could use to their full extent. An Earth Saint Master was only able to use 1 or 2 parts of the ruler armament, but despite that, the power was still terrifying. As if remembering this fact, Jian Chen thought back to the fire sword as it gave off a bright red light that was strong enough to cause the seal of Treasure Mountain from Shixiangran to be sent flying back. That one battle between Shixiangran and this person had attracted the eyes of many people, but Jian Chen had never found out the conclusion to that fight. Could it be that this youth was the one that fought against Shixiangran? Jian Chen thought. The other dozen men walked back into their tents to rest, slowly disappearing from everyone's sight. The magical beasts up front are too strong. We'll have to wait for a moment longer and wait for more people to come before we can try again. Jian Chen said. Afterward, the 6 people all grabbed a tent from their space belts and began to set it up in a small circle close by. Hey, you there. Who gave you and your group permission to set up camp here? Hurry up and tear them down. Hurry up and take them down. A 30-year-old man came into view and stared angrily at Jian Chen and the other 5. This man was rather skinny and wore a white robe. There was an arrogant look on his face which also had a single 3-claw scratch on it. Everyone turned to look at the noise as many of them began to smile at the misfortune of the group. This group surely doesn't know the rules of this place. Could it be that they didn't see how many people were afraid of setting up tents here? They were right to not do so. If everyone were to be able to set up their tents, then there wouldn't be any spot to have a tent at all. A man muttered as he drank from his wine gourd on a tree branch. They must be newcomers to this place and don't know the rules. Just why aren't they a bit smart? Did they not see how many people there are here but only a few tents? This isn't a place that just anyone could have a tent. Another man spoke up from his tree branch. The white-robed man immediately walked up to where Jian Chen's group was. The moment he saw that Jian Chen had no intention on tearing down their tents, his face distorted in anger as he shouted, "Did you not hear me? I said to tear your tents down, now." The man then kicked apart Qin Ju's tent before stomping toward Jian Chen's tent. With a kick, he attempted to tear down Jian Chen's tent. A flash of killing intent appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. In an instant, the light wind sword appeared in his hand as a silver-white light followed it. In an instant, the sword had slashed through the man's leg. Ah! The man let loose a howling sound in misery. The leg he had let loose to tear down Jian Chen's tent had instantly been cut off, causing blood to leak from the stump. Reabsorbing the sword, Jian Chen kicked the man's chest, causing him to fly 10 meters away into the air before falling to the ground and tumbling several steps violently. The fortitude of the man was evidently very weak as he began to scream out in pain continuously in a suffering manner. Those who had been watching with interest at first all stared at the 20-year-old youth with disbelief now. At this sight, the power displayed had been far more than what they had imagined. A purple-robed man with a resolute expression immediately came into the tent ground. He was one of the dozen men that had came back from the forest. When he saw the amputated leg of the man who was screaming on the ground, an unknown flash of light appeared in his eyes as he stared around the campgrounds. What happened here? The purple-robed man's voice was especially calm, making it seem as if he was only inquiring about the matter. At this moment, several of the tents opened up simultaneously. The men that appeared from the tents were all from the party that had ventured into the forest and were brought to the scene due to the screaming man. "Jia Kaxi, who's the one that hurt you?" A horrified voice could be heard as a scarred middle-aged man came running forth like an arrow to the man with a furious face. "Big brother, it was him. He cut off my leg, my leg. Ah, my leg. Brother, you must help me kill him." The man pointed at Jian Chen with a furious look. The unbearable pain had already caused his face to distort. The scarred man looked at Jian Chen before standing up slowly. A 3-meter-long red spear appeared in his hands before quickly running toward Jian Chen without a single word. The spear danced with a fiery red glow as it flew toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen gained a cold look in his eyes as the light wind sword smashed against the spear. The collision caused a large shockwave of energy to fly out, crushing the surrounding 10 meters of vegetation into the ground. The people watching all retreated back several steps in order to allow the two people to settle their dispute. Chapter 311, Gathering of the Five Experts. 2. Jian Chen's sword struck out immediately as it left behind a single mirror image. Slowly, the mirror image turned into a dense net of mirror images that enshrouded the enemy. Several metallic clangs could be heard as the weapons struck against each other in a continuous motion, the energy scattering around the area and leaving a mess. This youth is quite strong if he's able to fight Zhigu to a standstill. The fire sword-wielding youth muttered under his breath with some shock. This youth is quite complex to be able to fight Zhigu on a scale like this without being put at a disadvantage. Geniuses are too scary. When he grows older, he will definitely be a person of major influence and power. "My lord, should we go rope him into our grace?" The purple-robed man asked the fire sword-wielding youth. The sword-wielder looked on with a flash of killing intent. With his strength, he'll definitely try to fight for the number 1 spot in the gathering of the mercenaries. He is a rival. With that, the purple-robed man understood the meaning of the youth's words and went quiet. On the other side, a youth around the age of 30 years old wore a white robe with golden linings. Both of his hands were wrapped up against his chest as he watched the two fight. It seems Jie Wukong's men have provoked a decent fighter. I didn't think he'd be so young though. That's right, that youth is quite decent if he's able to fight Zhigu to a standstill. If his strength was limited by just a small amount, it would be his defeat for sure. While Jie Wukong's strength isn't as good as Zhigu, with a ruler armament, he can only be matched up against others with a ruler armament. Otherwise, no one aside from a Heaven Saint Master would be an opponent for him. The white-robed man by his side said. It would seem that the youth will die here. When it comes to Jie Wukong's temper, absolutely no one in this world can escape from it after provoking him. That might not be the case here, Lord Qin Ji. Do you see that yellow-robed girl behind him? The man spoke with a smile. Hearing that, the one named Qin Ji turned to look at the girl. Unable to move his eyes away from the sight, he said, "What a stunning girl, her face is as cold as ice. Her eyes even give off a grim feeling. This is absolutely not a simple girl." The middle-aged man laughed and said, "Lord Qin Ji, do you see the golden longbow on her back?" Qin Ji immediately looked away from the girl and onto the longbow on her back. He said nothing after. The middle-aged man said, "I don't recognize what bow that is, but I can only assume it's not an ordinary one. It isn't her saint weapon because I can't detect any saint force from it. So, I can only guess that bow is actually a second uncle. Could it be that bow is a..." Qin Ji spoke with shock. "I don't dare confirm it." The man shook his head. First technique of the divine spears, 3 techniques, shadows of the spear. A voice cried out as the middle-aged man's spear began to fill the air with its shadow, stabbing toward Jian Chen. The shadows of the spear were numerous, making it difficult to tell which one was real and which one was fake. Each one of them were like the real one as it released a strong amount of pressure. This technique was almost parallel to Jian Chen's sword strikes. That's an Earth-tier battle skill. A person cried out. An Earth-tier battle skill? That's second to a Heaven-tier battle skill. I didn't think I would be able to see one today. I've heard a Heaven-tier battle skill was enough to change the winds of battle and even distort the world. Who knows what an Earth-tier battle skill will be capable of? Jian Chen let out a sneer as he closed his eyes. His right hand continued to blur as the sword in his hand covered the air with phantom images of the sword that rivaled the spears in numbers. Ding 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 ding. Following a series of metallic sounds in a short amount of time, the man and Jian Chen continued to fight for 100 blows. The two were traveling at speeds so fast they were almost invisible to the naked eye. The only difference was that while the man was relying on his battle skill in order to strike at such high speeds, Jian Chen was relying on his own strength to lash out at equal speeds. What a fast speed! The fire sword youth cried out in shock. His sword is too fast, even I find it hard to keep track of the real one. The purple-robed man spoke in amazement. What a fast sword! Just what did he do in order to reach a speed where he could fight against the battle skill of Zhigu? Qin Ji asked in amazement. Even I'm curious about this. A sixth cycle Earth Saint Master with the wind attribute would find it difficult to achieve such a speed. His Saint Force is clearly not of the wind attribute, yet he is still able to achieve such a speed. It makes me feel too astonished. Just what is helping his arm swing that fast? Second technique of the Divine Spear, Divine Dragon's Tail. A bright red spear flew into the air before smashing downward with an extreme amount of force onto Jian Chen. At the same time, an intense amount of pressure pressed down onto him as if it was a heavy stone, causing Jian Chen to feel unable to advance a single step. Without fear, Jian Chen lifted his sword and with a large amount of sword qi, he met the spear head-on. Bang! Following a loud explosion, a large ripple of energy surrounded Jian Chen as he was forced back several steps with his arms trembling slightly. Following his backward momentum, two small ditches could be seen from the drag. As an Earth-tier battle skill, the second technique and first technique were equal in strength almost. Third technique, all-conquering Divine Spear. Just as Jian Chen regained his footing, Zhigu roared once more as the fire-red-colored light began to shine brightly. A large amount of compressed berserk energy began to form on the tip of the spear. Jian Chen suddenly felt as if that this spear was undodgeable, as if the spear was locked onto him. The only option left was to take it head-on. Jian Chen closed his eyes slowly as he carefully monitored Zhigu's position. At this moment, his spirit and the light wind sword in his hand established a deep connection that caused the sword to grow colder as a bright amount of sword qi burst out. As the sword was completely enveloped, it suddenly left Jian Chen's hand with a burst of silver light before shooting forward. Bang! Another loud bang could be heard as the compressed energy on the spear's tip lost its equilibrium. Exploding violently, the explosion looked as if there was a beautiful flower on the spear. It continued to expand as the bright red light stunned everyone that saw it. The dirt from the ground went flying as the powerful energy scattered through the entire area and forced everyone around 100 meters back, while Jian Chen and Zhigu were drowned within the energy. In half a moment, the energy dissipated completely, revealing Jian Chen and Zhigu's positions to everyone else. The two men looked completely intact and had only suffered a small bit of damage from the energy blast, with their clothes a bit disheveled. The binding on Jian Chen's hair had already been lost, causing Jian Chen's long hair to dance in the hurricane-like wind. In his right hand was the same silver light wind sword. Right in front of him, Zhigu remained in his spear-wielding stance while his body continued to remain in that position without moving. The hair that used to reach down to his waist had been severed so that only the hair from the neck up remained. Suddenly, Zhigu's throat began to show some blood before a small thin line began to expand across his throat. In a split second, the line became bright red in color, and, in the next second, Zhigu's entire head separated from his body and fell to the ground. Everyone looking at this spectacle went into an uproar as they all looked at Jian Chen and Zhigu's corpse with complete and utter shock. In that split second, they all didn't know what had happened. They could all see that Zhigu had launched the final attack of his Earth-tier battle skills, but Jian Chen had neither died nor suffered any heavy injuries. They hadn't expected this outcome where Jian Chen would stand without a scratch after the Earth-tier battle skill was released. Even more so, they didn't imagine that the unbelievably strong Zhigu would have his head drop to the ground. Just how did Zhigu die? What happened in that one split second? Everyone began to think about these questions as they swirled around in their minds. To dare kill one of our Jieda clansmen, you are seeking death. In that moment, a furious person roared as a 30-year-old youth with a meter-long sword flew at Jian Chen. A fire-like saint force began to billow out from him, causing everyone to look at him with shock. What a strong burst of energy! Could he be a heaven saint master? A few of the Earth Saint Masters who thought themselves as the strongest began to look on with shock. Even Jian Chen's face grew deathly serious as he saw the ruler armament in the youth's hand. This would be the second ruler armament he had seen in this place, and the both of them were swords of the fire element. Die! The youth stared at Jian Chen as he swung down his ruler armament. Jian Chen was already familiar with what a ruler armament was, so without daring to meet it head-on, he retreated backward. At the same time, a bright golden light flashed from behind as it flew toward the ruler armament. Chapter 312, Gathering of the Five Experts. 3. The golden light that appeared behind Jian Chen suddenly struck against the ruler armament with a loud ear-ringing sound. Another blast of energy flew out from the collision and spread out toward everyone watching. Those with the strength of a great Saint Master within 100 meters were instantly sent flying away. Against such an intense amount of energy, only those with an Earth Saint Master level of strength would be able to stand their ground. The golden light that had struck against the youth's ruler armament caused him to be shocked before the explosion, and shockwave sent him flying back several meters. When he regained his footing, his face was already beginning to pale. Ruler armaments were extremely strong, and when two ruler armaments clashed in such a close proximity, even an Earth Saint Master would be hit with a strong feedback. That recent explosion that happened right in front of the youth's eyes had clearly dealt some minor damage to him, but because his strength wasn't all that strong, if he were to discard his ruler armament, he would be weaker than Zhigu. The youth holding the ruler armament looked at the longbow-wielding girl behind Jian Chen with a terrified look as he spoke out, stuttering, "Are you El ruler armament?" The girl didn't reply to the man and lowered her bow slightly. Then, her hand gripped the longbow tightly and prepared to fire off a second arrow. "I didn't think there'd be another ruler armament here, let alone a longbow-modeled one." The 2-meter fire sword-wielding man spoke with amazement toward the longbow. Qin Ji let out a long sigh as he stared at the sight with a complicated look. "Second uncle, it seems that your guess was correct, that longbow is definitely a ruler armament." The middle-aged man standing right next to Qin Ji smiled faintly. "I truly didn't think that longbow would be a ruler armament." "How unexpected, that means there are 6 ruler armaments here. The chances of killing those magical beasts have just risen. It is a shame that Zhigu has died, taking out a good amount of our forces." Qin Ji laughed. "Second uncle, although Zhigu has died, another person with an unexpected amount of strength has appeared. It seems to me that he is by no means weaker and will be a great boost to our strength." "That is correct." The appearance of the Solunar Bao caused the youth who came out to avenge the death of Zhigu to waver before standing still and shouting, "Who are you?" "That is my question to you." Jian Chen spoke out calmly. Although he was afraid of getting hit with a ruler armament, he didn't show it on his face. The youth looked at Jian Chen with disdain before looking back to the girl and spoke proudly, "This one is called Jie Wukong." Within this isolated world, Jie Wukong's name had been known to everyone as one of the 5 experts. Jian Chen, who had been scoffed by Jie Wukong, laughed coldly, "So you're Jie Wukong, you're nothing much then. If you were to go without your ruler armament, then you would not even be an opponent for me to kill. You are courting death." Jian Chen's words reversed the scale of Jie Wukong, causing him to immediately blow up in anger. Holding his ruler armament, he flew at Jian Chen, but before he could get far with his outstretched ruler armament, he immediately stopped. The girl had notched her lunar bow once more and was already aiming the bow at him. Jie Wukong's face went white for a moment. While they both had ruler armaments, a bow always held the advantage in a long-range battle. If he were to be shot, even if he were to block it with his ruler armament, the mighty explosion that would happen after would force him to eat up a loss. To him, eating up a loss was not an outcome he wanted. He would definitely come out the loser since the golden arrows were too fast for him to dodge. Thus, Jie Wukong was stuck in a difficult situation to retreat from. Seeing how Jie Wukong was stuck in a difficult situation where he could neither retreat or advance, a laugh could be heard in the crowd. He, just what lively event is happening here, who's fighting? It's surely a large battle if I can feel the mountains shake, you've scared this girl half to death almost. With that, a pink-robed girl walked past the crowd with small quick steps. By her side, she was followed by 2 expressionless men. This was a fully matured girl who looked to be around 26 years old. Her entire body seemed to exude an endless amount of charm, and with every movement, it seemed that she was able to enrapture anyone nearby. The pink-robed girl's appearance could only be described as devastatingly beautiful, that was exceedingly rare under the heavens. With her charm exuding from her body, she was as deadly as the yellow-robed girl in terms of beauty and killing intent, giving everyone else the feeling, a desire to conquer her. Ha, this girl comes from the Tianmu clan with the first name Ling. I hope every big brother here looks after me carefully. The pink-robed girl laughed with a crisp sound almost as if it carried an enchanting spell. Those with a low control of themselves began to feel lost. Tianmu Ling, could she be the Tianmu Ling from the 5 experts? A person cried out in shock. While everyone knew the names of the 5 experts, some of them had never seen what they had looked like before. Everyone looked at Tianmu Ling with a strange look as they all thought to themselves with some shock. None of them had imagined that Tianmu Ling would be a charming girl and was at the same time a little unconventional in her attitude. Tianmu Ling slowly looked around herself before seeing the still motionless figure of Jie Wukong and laughed, "This younger brother is quite strong. The sword in your hand must be some sort of strange saint weapon to be able to cause this little girl's heart to flutter with such fear." With that, Tianmu Ling took on a scared expression, making herself seem quite pitiful. Jie Wukong had an embarrassed smile on his face as he tried to use this as a way to escape from the situation. He slowly put down his ruler armament and spoke proudly, "This one is called Jie Wukong. This saint weapon is the treasure of my Jie clan. Rumors say that it is the byproduct of the 1st generation and possesses a boundless amount of energy. It is so strong that if a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master were to use this sword, then it would be capable of killing a Heaven Saint Master." Wow, how strong! Tianmu Ling had a look of shock on her face as she put her jade-white fingers up to cover her mouth. This type of reaction caused Jie Wukong to feel even more proud of himself. Then what might the other big brothers be called? Tianmu Ling looked at everyone else that had some sort of authority within the crowd. "This one is Qin Ji." The white and gold-lined robed youth cupped his hands together with a gentle smile. "This one is called Dugu Feng." The other man with a 2-meter-long sword made of a fiery red color cupped his hands as well. Qin Ji, Dugu Feng, and Jie Wukong, you 3 are all men this little girl has heard before. This girl didn't think that 3 of the 5 experts would appear right in front of her, or that these 3 elite big brothers would be so handsome that my heart would start to dance and leap. Tian Muling was like an 18-year-old girl that was staring with eyes of infatuation. It was as if she was meeting her adored idol as her eyes suddenly turned into stars. And what might little sister be called? Could you call me big sister? Tian Muling turned to look at the yellow-clothed girl with a smile. Humph. The girl snorted before turning her head in disgust. Tian Muling seemed to have ignored that as she turned toward Jian Chen with a smile in one smooth transition. Then this little brother must be one of the 5 experts, Shi Xiangran. This one is Jian Chen, not Shi Xiangran. Jian Chen spoke calmly. A look of surprise appeared on Tian Muling's face before instantly going away as she laughed. Little brother Jian Chen, you are quite handsome. So handsome that I almost went crazy. You should take responsibility for this. After hearing this, although Jian Chen knew that Tian Muling was only joking, he couldn't help but feel a giant sweat drop fall down his forehead. The yellow-clothed girl suddenly spat something out in anger. Oh! Could little sister here be jealous? Tian Muling laughed as she looked at the other girl while ignoring the insult that was thrown out. The beautiful face of the girl suddenly turned red as her chest began to heave up and down before staring angrily at Tian Muling. She started to fume angrily as she growled, "You should speak less garbage. Ayo, little sister has a large temper. This can't do, girl, you must be gentle, or else no man will like you." Tian Muling beamed. The yellow-clothed girl said nothing else. Suddenly, another set of footsteps could be heard as a 27-year-old youth wearing white slowly came into view. Jian Chen quickly took notice of this youth. From his appearance, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly took on a dangerous gleam. This person was Shi Xiangran. The differences between all of the 5 experts that were there, including Tian Muling, was every single person had a few strong experts with them. However, Shi Xiangran was traveling by himself. Shi Xiangran didn't notice Jian Chen yet, but the moment he saw the bright clothes of one of the people, his eyes took notice of the yellow-clothed girl and suddenly stopped. In an instant, the light wind sword appeared in Jian Chen's hand. He couldn't reveal the secret with his soul sword just yet, so the sword stayed in his hand. With a silver flash of light, he flew toward Shi Xiangran before stabbing at his throat with unbelievable speed. He had to kill Shi Xiangran before he could utilize his barrier, otherwise, once that barrier went up, then he would be invincible while using his ruler armament. Shi Xiangran hadn't yet realized Jian Chen was there, but the very moment he had noticed the yellow-clothed girl, he instinctively thought to the Solunar Bow and unveiled his barrier without hesitation. The very moment the light wind sword was about to pierce through his throat, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared over his body. Bow! As the barrier appeared, it suddenly shook violently as the sword qi on the light wind sword touched the very first layer of Shi Xiangran's throat. As it pierced the first layer of skin, it didn't reach any farther before being shot back out like a bullet due to the barrier. Jian Chen's eyes flashed dangerously once more as the light wind sword began to release an even larger amount of sword qi as he tried to stab at Shi Xiangran's throat once more. Shi Xiangran's barrier began to shake violently, but because of its unbelievably strong defenses, the light wind sword was unable to tear it apart. As the barrier continued to expand, the light wind sword was driven farther and farther back. Jian Chen let out a sigh in dejection before taking back the light wind sword. If he was just faster by a second, then he would have been able to kill Shi Xiangran. Seeing the light wind sword shoot away from him, Shi Xiangran suddenly turned pale with fright because he had absolutely no idea when the sword had approached him. He reached up with his hands to touch his neck only to feel a small sliver of blood leak out from the wound onto his finger. Shi Xiangran's face turned white at that. At the sight of blood, his forehead began to sweat heavily. It was at that moment that he had realized he was one step away from knocking on the doors to the underworld and nearly stepped through them. Chapter 313, Joining Hands. Shi Xiangran's face continued to turn white at that. At the sight of blood, his forehead began to sweat heavily. It was at that moment that he had realized he was one step away from knocking on the doors to the underworld and nearly stepped across it. A furious anger began to swell up within Shi Xiangran's chest as he glared dangerously at Jian Chen. His eyes began to exude a treacherous amount of killing intent that went undisguised. Just now, if he hadn't been able to activate his barrier in time, he would have become a corpse. Furthermore, to die at the hands of someone that was younger than he was, to the high and mighty Shi Xiangran who spent his entire life being spoiled as the genius of the clan, was a humiliation that he could never forget. If I don't kill you today, then I will no longer write my name as Shi Xiangran. Shi Xiangran's eyes went bloodshot as he flew toward Jian Chen with an angry yell. From his space belt, he took out a small fist-sized iron chunk and threw it into the air. Quickly, the iron seal enlarged in midair and blocked the sunlight from above with a circumference of about 200 meters. Covering the sky of everyone nearby, the seal immediately came crashing down to the ground with a heavy wave of energy. The moment Dugu Feng saw the iron seal above their heads, his eyes flashed dangerously before immediately taking out a long sword and slashed up with a fiery blaze. The very moment he slashed his sword, the surrounding temperature in the air suddenly increased by a terrifying amount. Even the 1-meter-long sword wielder Jieda Wukong looked up with disdain. Sneering, he leaped up into the air and struck at the seal with his sword a fiery blaze. Immediately, the temperature in the surrounding area increased once more, causing the vegetation in the area to dry up straight away. Even the trees that were reaching high into the air were beginning to shrivel up as if all of the water inside them was being evaporated. The fire was so strong, it was almost as if everyone was in a sea of fire. Qin Ji's face grew extremely dark as a machete appeared within his hand. The machete was surrounded by a cyan glow, but the shape of the machete itself was strange. The machete had a saw blade-like design where each tooth seemed to be inexplicably sharp. Qin Ji raised his machete and leaped into the air toward the seal of Treasure Mountain. With a single slash of cyan light, he struck out at the seal at the same time. Tianmu Ling revealed a long whip and laughed, "This little brother has quite the temper. I haven't offended you, so could you please not go around randomly using things to smash into people?" With that, her arm shook and brought the whip flying straight up at the seal. Whoosh! A flash of golden light flew past Jian Chen as the girl let loose her bowstring. An arrow of pure saint force condensed into shape as it flew at an unbelievable speed toward the seal. At this moment, the 5 experts had all unleashed their attacks each with their own ruler armament. The only difference was that 4 experts along with the yellow-clothed girl were fighting against one. Shi Xiangran's seal of Treasure Mountain encompassed 200 meters in circumference, which towered over everyone there. In his rage-induced stupor, he had failed to notice that he had offended everyone there. By the time Shi Xiangran realized this fact, it was far too late. Bang! The 6 ruler armament crashed against each other, emitting a large ear-ringing sound. Immediately, the ground began to shake and mountains started to tremble as the largest amount of energy that day flew out from every corner as a result and blew over the 5 experts and Jian Chen. Everyone was unable to keep grounded to the floor and could only fly backward. With each step they tried to use to anchor themselves, they could only succeed in leaving a small footprint. Ha! The explosion rocked the ears of everyone in the vicinity with an explosive sound. Everyone tried to use their saint force to coat themselves in it in order to protect themselves from the blast radius. Out of everyone present, the only one who felt safe at all was Shi Xiangran because of his barrier. The defenses to his barrier were so strong that despite the intense aftermath, he would not be harmed. The worst that would happen was that he would be blown backward. 4 of the ruler armaments returned to their owner's hand as the 5th ruler armament, the seal of Treasure Mountain, was hit by a combined amount of force high up in the air. Instead of landing back down to the ground, it returned to Shi Xiangran's hand. The energy that had exploded outward completely destroyed the area as well as throwing all nearby trees into the air and flattened the grass before incinerating it. On the ground, there was a single fissure with a large series of spiderweb cracks extending out from it. After a while, the energy finally subsided into a tranquil scene. For a kilometer, not a single blade of grass could be seen and the trees were scattered about. Shi Xiangran, who was situated inside the barrier, looked as if his face could leak water. In his heart, he had felt inexplicable resentment. He hadn't thought that in his one single strike, he would somehow offend everyone there. Thus, he blamed everything on Jian Chen. Tian Muling returned the whip before adopting a face of traumatized fear and placing a hand to her chest. How scary. That iron seal is too scary. Big brother, I can only assume that you are Shi Xiangran of the 5 experts. Ayo, why can't this little girl remember when I offended Big Brother? Just why is it that the moment Big Brother appeared, he wanted to kill us all? It's a good thing this little girl has some self-protection and so many big brothers to help us in this time of need. Otherwise, this little girl would have been smashed to the ground. Hearing Tian Muling speak, Shi Xiangran's face grew even darker and darker. Before he could say anything, his face instantly returned to normal and then adopting an apologetic expression and cupped his hands together. I apologize everyone, when I saw a hated enemy of mine, I had somehow made a silly mistake. This one is called Shi Xiangran. I've no intentions on being anyone's enemy, I hope no one pays too much attention to this. Turning to point at Jian Chen, he said, do you dare to see who's stronger between us two? Or could it be you only know how to hide behind a woman? If it's like this, how are you any different from a coward? Shi Xiangran spoke with disdain to Jian Chen. Jian Chen's face grew dark as he stared dangerously at Shi Xiangran with an undisguised amount of killing intent. As a large amount of Saint force concentrated in his hand and formed the light wind sword before slowly walking toward Shi Xiangran. Right now, he planned to use the azure and violet sword qi in an attempt to test an idea. Although he wasn't sure if they would be able to destroy the barrier, Jian Chen could still wish. Seeing how Jian Chen still desired to fight Shi Xiangran, the yellow-clothed girl couldn't help but feel anxious before running up to stop Jian Chen. Facing Shi Xiangran with an angry look, she spoke, Shi Xiangran, you despicable bastard, if it weren't for that barrier protecting you, you would have been killed long ago. Just what qualifications do you have to issue a challenge? If you are a man, then get rid of your barrier and fight like a man would. Shi Xiangran's face suddenly grew unsightly as he heard the girl's words. Those words were coincidentally the very words that stabbed at Shi Xiangran's weak point. Staring icily at her, he roared, you repulsive bitch. You. The girl started as her eyes furiously bore a hole into Shi Xiangran. From her eyes, it seemed as if she was ready to cut Shi Xiangran into a million pieces. At that moment, Qin Ji walked in between the two and cupped his hands. Fellow friends, please listen to my words for a moment. Before waiting for the two to respond, he said, we have all gathered here today in order to find out the answer to the secret here. We shouldn't be wasting any times on useless things. Right in front of us is the Immortal's Cave. This much everyone can attest to seeing, but there are several strong magical beasts guarding it. Even if we all have ruler armaments, it would still be very difficult to enter the area. So, I wish that we can all put aside our grievances and work together. As long as we can defeat all the magical beasts, we will be able to enter the cave and see the inner treasures. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will never be able to enter since there is only 10 days left until this round of the competition is over. That's right, if we want to enter the cave, then there is no other choice but to join hands. Those magical beasts are far too strong for us individually. Said Dugu Feng with his fire sword in hand as one of the men with a ruler armament. Ha ha ha, that's right. Fellow big brothers, it would be better for you to temporarily give up your hatred. Getting into the cave is of the utmost priority. I've heard there was a heaven-tier battle skill in there, that is a monumental prize. Plus, this is the cave of a senior cultivator. Even if there isn't a heaven-tier battle skill, there'll definitely be a treasure of sorts in there. Tian Muling said. Right now there's only 10 days until the end of this round of the competition. When we get transported out by the strange energy, we'll be powerless to try and remain here. If we wish to enter the cave, then we must all unite. The purple-robed man next to Du Gufeng spoke. Hearing his words, Jian Chen's eyes continued to flash continuously with some hesitation. In the end, he reclaimed his light wind sword. A heaven-tier battle skill was something he desperately wanted. Joining the gathering of the mercenaries was for the sake of obtaining one so that he could hand it over to the Changyang clan. One could imagine that if the Changyang clan were to obtain a heaven-tier battle skill, their strength would improve greatly. If the Changyang clan's strength was to increase to a sufficient amount, then he wouldn't need to hide from the Huayun sect and return to the gentle home that he remembered as well as the kind and loving mother he had. Chapter 314, Division of People. Shi Xiangran sneered as he shot a venomous glare at Jian Chen. You're lucky, I'll let you go for now. With that, Shi Xiangran returned the seal of Treasure Mountain to his space ring, but the barrier remained activated to protect himself. Jian Chen couldn't help but fire back, you should stay in that tortoise shell forever. Let's see just how long that will last. For the barrier that a saint ruler paid a heavy price to make be called a tortoise shell, Shi Xiangran's face went ashen as he heard Jian Chen. Upon hearing those words, Qin Ji, Jie Wukong, Du Gufeng, and Tian Muling all began to smile unnaturally. Ha ha ha, for someone to say the barrier left behind by a saint ruler's saint force is a tortoise shell, this little girl has lived for some time, but this is the first time I've heard of such a thing. Little brother Jian Chen is far too unique. Tian Muling laughed. Well then everyone, there's not much time left. We should plan accordingly now that we have 6 ruler armaments here. We'll definitely be able to destroy those magical beasts and reduce the casualties to an absolute minimum. Qin Ji spoke. By now, the battle was over. That intense amount of energy that had rippled across the area for a kilometer had finally receded and many Earth Saint Masters had already returned. No wonder they are called the 5 experts, their strength is far too strong. Just what was that 200-meter object? It seemed extremely powerful. I heard them call it a ruler armament. Strange, just what is that? I've never heard of such a thing before. Many of the men there began to chat among themselves in quiet voices with a fear of speaking too loud. There are a total of 4 magical beasts, each one of is a rare species and are individually very strong. It requires 2 of us with a ruler armament in order to fight one of them to a standstill. I can only guess that it would take 3 of us with a ruler armament in order to kill one of the magical beasts. We have 6 ruler armament users, meaning that we can kill 2 of them. The other 2 will have to be dealt with by the others. Qin Ji spoke seriously. We have plenty of Earth Saint Masters, with the last 2 magical beasts, they'll be able to deal with them. Although no one else would have a ruler armament, the amount of Earth Saint Masters is enough to be able to handle any problem. Du Gufeng said. That's correct, Qin Ji nodded his head. If we all work together, then we will be able to break past the defensive line of the magical beasts. I agree to this plan. Du Gufeng endorsed. I agree as well. Jie Wukong spoke out. 3 of the 5 experts had all agreed while the other 2 remained silent. Brother Jian Chen, if we may have your opinion. Qin Ji looked toward the yellow-clothed girl and Jian Chen and then the 4 men behind them. With a single glance, he knew that Jian Chen and the girl were both the pillars of their group. I see no problems. Jian Chen smiled. The girl said nothing and only nodded her head in agreement. Seeing the strongest 2 of the group give their agreement, Qin Ji had a look of excitement on his face. Then, with a look around the area, he spoke in a loud voice, everyone, now that the 5 experts have all united to enter the Immortals' Cave, I hope that everyone will stand with us. Our combined strength will be enough to kill the magical beasts, and whoever enters the cave will be able to take their own treasure. As soon as Qin Ji finished his speech, everyone stood up at once and began to cheer loudly. Each one of these men were at least at the Great Saint Master level if not higher. If you are not an Earth Saint Master, then don't throw your life away. We are only inviting Earth Saint Masters to fight with us. Du Gufeng yelled out loud, causing those of the Great Saint Masters to be displeased by this. After this, the Great Saint Masters could only retreat away from the campgrounds, leaving behind around 70 men. Each one of them were Earth Saint Masters with a strong background and a determined face. Good, then let's have everyone here so we can plan things out. I propose that we split up into 4 groups, each one will deal with a single magical beast. Does anyone have any opinions? Qin Ji spoke. This plan's fine, I agree. I agree as well. Everyone began to ask their questions. Just who will be in which of the 4 divisions? A person asked. Qin Ji smiled, when it comes to this, I've already a plan. The inner group here has enough people to split into 2 groups of 10. The rest of the 70 men here should split into 2 groups as well. 2 groups of 35 men, does anyone have any objections? The inner group Qin Ji had mentioned were all standing right next to him. Some were the 5 experts, including Jian Chen's group. It looked as though the men on the outside had the advantage, but that wasn't it. Those in the inner group were all the strongest individuals, and a few of them could easily fight against 3 other men at their level of strength with ease. Right now we should split our groups then. Qin Ji looked at Jian Chen and the girl with a smile. Jian Chen, would it be possible for us to be on the same division? Seeing Qin Ji take the initiative to be friendly, Jian Chen was caught off guard for a moment before recovering himself quickly. If brother Qin Ji is with us, then it would be our honor. Little brother, you are so handsome, this elder sister wants to be with you. You wouldn't refuse me, would you? Tian Muling walked to Jian Chen at a leisurely pace and a huff of air exhaling out of her mouth. Jian Chen laughed with a collected face and calm heart. This one has no objections, but only brother Qin Ji can accept. I've no objections either. Sister Tian Muling is welcome to join. Qin Ji spoke with a graceful smile toward her. Ha ha ha, little sister, you look ill. Could it be you don't want elder sister joining you? Ha ha ha, little sister, you don't need to worry. Sister here won't snatch this handsome brother away from you. Tian Muling spoke with charm toward the yellow-clothed girl. You should speak less crap. The girl fumed as her eyes stared furiously at the girl as if she could spit fire from them. Ha ha ha, little sister has a huge temper. That can't do, little girl, you have to be gentle. Be considerate and men will love you. Like this, you won't have any men that'll treat you right. Tian Muling seemed as if she was never angry and constantly laughed. The girl's response was particularly violent as she pulled back the bowstring of her lunar bow and pointed an arrow at her. If you continue to speak like this, don't blame me then. Ah! Tian Muling shrieked as she hid behind Jian Chen for protection. With a fearful face, she said, Little sister, your older sister was only just joking. Please don't be so impulsive, otherwise, little brother's life here might be threatened. With a helpless sigh, Jian Chen spoke, Tian Muling, it's best if you stop teasing her. She has a bad temper. Ha ha ha, little brother's words here are all too correct. Little sister's temper is quite bad. Tian Muling laughed sillily but stopped teasing her. The people around them looked on as if they were watching a performance with a small smile on their faces, but no one said anything. Afterward, the 4 divisions were quickly split up. Jian Chen, the yellow-clothed girl, Tian Muling, and Qin Ji were all in one division along with the 2 expressionless men with Tian Muling, Qin Ji's 3 middle-aged companions, Seniorin, Yunzheng, Qin Zhu and Qin Xiao. The 2nd division was composed of Jie Wukong, Du Gufeng and several men. Only Shi Xiangran was left alone in that group without any companions. While these two groups weren't numerous in men, they still had 3 ruler armament users per division and extremely strong men. The 70 Earth Saint Masters were split into 2 divisions of 30, but since each person in both divisions had no experience working with each other, these 2 groups were the weakest of the 4. Everyone should rest up for today so that we will be at the peak of our power. Tomorrow, we will set out. With that, everyone began to set up their tents. There was enough room for everyone to set up a tent because of the battle that cleared out a kilometer of land, becoming a flat clearing. As for the great Saint Masters who were denied an invitation to fight, not a single one of them left. Together, they garrisoned themselves farther away in hopes that they could take advantage of the chaos and slip in. Within their own tents, Jian Chen addressed Signorin, Yunzheng, Qin Zhu, and Qin Shao, whether or not you wish to follow me or leave, just tell me. However, while the magical beasts are extremely strong, they are not the biggest threat. The biggest threat to us are those fighting with us. On the outside everyone is fighting for the same purpose to kill those magical beasts, but the moment we enter the Immortals' Cave, our alliance will undoubtedly crumble and fall into a chaotic battle. Jian Chen, I've known this already, but my strength is far too weak to help you. Even if I were to go and fight, I wouldn't be able to handle the aftermath from all of the explosions created from the battle. So I'll wait outside for you all. Qin Shao spoke with no hesitation and spoke of his plan. Qin Zhao's withdrawal was something that Jian Chen had expected. Even if Qin Shao were to enter, Jian Chen wouldn't be able to protect him. What about you 3? Jian Chen asked the other 3. I'll stay behind. Qin Zhu spoke out loud. Signorin and Yunzheng both gave each other a look before hesitating. Signorin then spoke up, Brother Jian Chen, I'll enter with you. Although our strength isn't on par with yours, our strength is still quite decent. Then I'll follow you in. Yunzheng said. Chapter 315, Entering the Immortals' Cave, 1. On the second day, everyone cleaned up their tents and formed a dense group within the forest. Shi Xiangran was afraid of Jian Chen's initial strike that he had delivered, causing him to keep up his barrier without the slightest intention of dropping it. Standing on the road, Qin Ji spoke to the others, there are only 4 magical beasts guarding the Immortals' Cave. The names of each of these strong magical beasts is the Flying Spirit Snake, Amethyst Thunder Lion, Albino Earthworm, and the Pangolin Emperor. After these several days of fighting them, we've already established that their strength is the same as each other. The only difference is their innate skills. The Flying Spirit Snake is capable of flight and spits out an extremely potent poison. If it flies, then it will be extremely hard to deal with. The Amethyst Thunder Lion has a protective layer of amethyst scales that have an extremely high defense. It can also spit out lightning as well as discharge electricity from its body. It would be the best for everyone to stay away from it. The Albino Earthworm is a special variation of an earthworm. It has an equally strong defense to the Amethyst Thunder Lion, but its only weakness is that it is slow. For anyone with an wind attribute Saint Force, they will find the Albino Earthworm easier to manage than the other 3. The last one is the Pangolin Emperor and the biggest headache. Its attack strength isn't as strong as the other 3, but the most annoying trait about it is that it is especially fast. In a single moment, it can drill deep into the earth to evade our attacks and then strike out from underneath. It is completely silent when it is in the earth and leaves behind no trace. It can attack from underneath one's foot at any time, and while it is the weakest in terms of attacks, its attacks are generally unblockable. At the mention of the Pangolin Emperor, Qin Ji's eyes narrowed angrily. Clearly, he had eaten up a heavy loss from it already. Qin Ji, which magical beast do you think we should take on? Jian Chen asked from the side. Does it need to be said? Of course we want the Flying Spirit Snake. We have 3 ruler armaments, and one of them is a longbow model. If the Flying Spirit Snake were to take to the skies, then we could shoot it down. We also have a whip that can tether and restrict the snake's mobility. At the very least, we could prevent it from taking to the skies. The two weapons are the bane of the flying spirit snake. Qin Ji spoke with no hesitation. Jian Chen thought for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. Yes, then the flying spirit snake poses less of a threat to use than the other magical beasts. Let's take it. Hearing Qin Ji speak, the seated Dugu Feng spoke up. The albino's earthworm has extremely strong defenses and has a lot of strength as well. The average Earth Saint Master wouldn't be able to do any damage to it, and without a ruler armament, its defenses cannot be pierced. My division will take this one. The Amethyst Thunder Lion and Pangolin Emperor will be handled by the other two divisions. In a flash, the discussion was over. The most annoying magical beast, the Pangolin Emperor, who had an unavoidable and unblockable attack, and the strongest magical beast, the Amethyst Thunder Lion, were given to the last two divisions. Although the men in those two divisions were displeased, they weren't able to say anything. The flying spirit snake was capable of flight, which would render all those on the ground helpless. It would also be able to strike at the men on the ground with its poison, so this magical beast was best suited for the group with the longbow and whip user. As for the albino earthworm, many men were of the same mind of as well. As were all magical beasts that held the character for dragon in their name, the defenses of the albino earthworm were as strong as Dugu Feng had said. The average Earth Saint Master would be incapable of doing harm to its body, and since it also had an extremely high defense, it was only fair that 3 ruler armaments were needed to harm and kill it. Although the Pangolin Emperor and Amethyst Thunder Lion were both hard to deal with, the remaining 2 divisions were strong in their own right and had many people. With at least 30 Earth Saint Masters against a single magical beast, the problem shouldn't be that big. After walking for 10 kilometers, everyone came to a stop as they spotted the remains of a battleground. Suddenly, the loud roar of a magical beast could be heard as it shook both the heavens and the earth with an ear-splitting sound. Then, 3 enormous magical beasts came into view, one massive python of large width with a head bigger than the height of a fully matured man and black wings. This was the flying spirit snake. Right next to the flying spirit snake was a large lion. Its head was incredibly ferocious looking and had amethyst-colored scales layered all over its body. Occasionally, a ripple of electricity would dance across its body. This was the Amethyst Thunder Lion. To the side of Amethyst Thunder Lion was a gecko-like magical beast that was 1 meter tall and 10 meters long. 4 stumpy legs held it up from the ground, and its body was completely covered by brown-colored scales. As these 3 magical beasts appeared, a strong presence could suddenly be felt, pressing against everyone's chest as if there were a heavy stone there, making it difficult to move. Together now, the Pangolin Emperor might still be underground, so be careful. Dugu Feng said as he held up his flame sword and charged toward the albino earthworm. Following straight behind, Shi Xiangran and Jieta Wukong and their group charged with their weapons out. At that moment, aside from the Pangolin Emperor, the other 3 magical beasts began to take action. Whoosh! With a flash of golden light, the yellow-clothed girl shot an arrow from her solunar bow toward the flying spirit snake. Bang! The arrow collided against the flying spirit snake with an explosive sound. The snake's entire body began to spasm for a moment before settling once more. On its giant body, a single bloody hole could be seen. With an enormous hissing sound that stung the ears, the snake flew toward the yellow-clothed girl. Qin Ji raised his machete and roared, "Use the whip to bind its body." Tian Muling flew forward with a serious expression. In an instant, the whip in her hands blurred as it flew toward the snake's body. While in midair, the whip began to extend before becoming a 100-meter-long cord that wrapped around the 2 wings and bound it shut, preventing it from flying. Forward! Qin Ji roared. With his ruler armament in the air, he and 3 other men flew at the flying spirit snake. At the same time, Jian Chen's body blurred away as he flew at the flying spirit snake as well with his light wind sword. Senior An and Yunzheng both followed close behind Qianchen. Bang! An explosive sound and a billow of energy pulsed out like an ocean of energy. The surrounding area quickly went to ruins as the three other divisions began to fight as well. Chapter 316, Entering the Immortal's Cave, 2. As the battle continued on for some time, a cry filled with pain could be heard on the battlefield as a middle-aged man was bitten from the waist down by a creature whose head looked like a mouse, dragging him down beneath the ground. That's the Pangolin Emperor. The Pangolin Emperor is here, everyone be careful of the ground. As soon as everyone heard the yell, they all stared intently at the ground. At that moment, right in front of the group, a large golden-colored rat-like beast flew up from the ground with the upper half of a man in its mouth. Be careful, the Pangolin Emperor is here. Hurry up and attack it, don't let it escape into the ground. As soon as the Pangolin Emperor appeared, everyone began to shout out loud as they charged at the Pangolin Emperor. The Pangolin Emperor was extremely fast and immediately flew back into the ground after swallowing the body in its mouth. Even when three saint weapons slashed at its body, only sparks could be seen. The Pangolin Emperor was a scaled magical beast with golden scales all over its body. Despite its defenses not being as strong as the albino earthworm, it was still stronger than what the average Earth Saint Master could damage. An incredibly sharp spike arose from the ground and instantly speared through the hip of a man before he could even react. Ah! The man cried out in a shrill voice before thrusting his fire attribute saint weapon into the ground in hopes of exposing the Pangolin Emperor from its subterranean hiding spot. All that he hit was earth as the Pangolin Emperor had already moved on from the area. An intense purple light flashed as the entire world shook all of a sudden. By the side, the amethyst thunder lion shot out a blue spear of lightning that arced toward the closest person, burning his body black, which caused him to fall to the ground. Several men struck out at the lion immediately with their saint weapons, creating a clanking sound as they smashed against its scales with some sparks and blood. Although the amethyst thunder lion's defenses weren't all too weak, it wasn't capable of defending against a barrage of blows without taking some damage. An angry roar was emitted from the lion's mouth as it swiped its sharp claws at the surrounding people attacking it. Another arc of lightning was spat out from the lion's mouth and struck the closest person without giving him a chance to dodge. In that instant, 10 of the 30 Earth Saint Masters that had attacked the amethyst thunder lion had been shocked by the lightning and fell to the floor with charcoal black bodies. Another 3 men were torn apart by the lion's claws, dying instantly and injuring several others. The power of an amethyst thunder lion was incredibly strong, and so those fighting against the lion would suffer the most casualties. On the other side, the groups fighting the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm were having an easy time. The two divisions both had 3 ruler armament user and were strong in their own right, making it hard for their group to suffer any casualties. Qin Ji brought up his ruler armament and swung it down onto the albino earthworm, easily cutting past the scales on its body and bringing a decent amount of damage to it. In a short moment, the entire body of the albino earthworm was dyed bright red with its blood. The flying spirit snake wasn't much stronger than the albino earthworm, especially with its wings restricted by Tianmu Ling's whip. Although she wasn't displaying the full might of her ruler armament, it was still enough to contend against the flying spirit snake. In the end, the snake's strength while bound up was far less than before, which impacted it majorly, so only around 60% of its full power could be displayed. Qin Ji's ruler armament struck against the body of the flying spirit snake and left behind a deep 1-meter-long gash, causing it to cry out. The yellow-clothed girl stood far away and shot arrow after arrow from her longbow. Each golden arrow flew toward the head of snake. With a violent hissing sound, the snake began to sway its head side to side as blood dripped down. Jian Chen and the other men began to fly at the snake with their saint weapons ready to attack. On its head, each person swung down to deliver a heavy stroke. Despite each magical beast being quite strong, the humans attacking them at the same time was far too much. Each man was an Earth Saint Master at the least, and taking a hit from them was taxing on their strength. As for the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm, taking on 3 ruler armaments each brought about even more damage than what the amethyst thunder lion had caused. As of right now, only the pangolin emperor had an advantage over the other side and was in good condition. The flying spirit snake continued to struggle fiercely against the bindings but to no avail. The wounds on its body was growing more and more severe and its temper even more violent as it continued to be injured. Tianmu Ling's face grew serious as she bit her lower lip and concentrated while sweat pooled over her forehead. At the moment, she was completely focused on constraining the wings of the flying spirit snake. Suddenly, the flying spirit snake let out a loud hiss as a large amount of corrosive acid shot from its mouth headed in every direction. The very moment the poison landed on a person, the clothes and flesh of the area it landed on immediately melted away. The poison is too corrosive, it can penetrate through Saint force and in 2 hours it can kill even an Earth Saint Master. Retreat! Qin Ji commanded as the 3 men and Senior quickly retreated back with him to escape from the poison. The cloud that was wafting up from the poison was already causing visibility to be almost non-existent, causing anyone on the outside to be unable to see what was happening within the area. Enveloped in a transparent barrier, Qin Ji disregarded all attempts at defense and leaped high into the air before coming down onto the snake, piercing it in its heart. Slash! The region near the heart of the flying spirit snake immediately ripped in a 1-meter gash as Qin Ji flew into the next strike and split apart the wound even further with his weapon once more. The flying spirit snake let out an ear-piercing hiss as it violently swung its body upright. In the next second, the tail of the snake smashed into Qin Ji's barrier. Although Qin Ji wasn't injured, the impact was enough to send him flying far away. As he flew through the air, Qin Ji's eyes widened suddenly. In an earth-shattering moment, he could see the blurry glows of an azure and violet ray of light through the poisonous mist. Aoo! In the next second, a desperate wail from the flying spirit snake could be heard. Within the poisonous mist, no one was capable of seeing what was happening, but they knew that something had obviously struck the ground heavily and shook it. The flying spirit snake continued to hiss in pain as its voice grew warped. The poisonous mist in the area began to swirl around madly as if something was shaping it into a random shape. The blood-soaked Jian Chen quickly flew out from the poisonous mist with the majority of his clothes melting away from the poison and some of the green poison still stuck to his body. Only the yellow-clothed girl was standing in front of him, and since there was a layer of poisonous mist covering his body, no one else was able to see Jian Chen. Jian Chen immediately took out a new set of clothes and quickly cleaned off the rest of the snake's poison before putting on the new set. Just like he was still in yesterday's clothes, Jian Chen flew around the poisonous mist with a smile to regroup with the rest. At that moment, the previously spasming flying spirit snake finally stilled as the poisonous mist dispersed as well, allowing everyone to see what happened within. The moment everyone could see, their faces went still with shock and amazement. Even Qin Ji was no different from the rest. The entire body of the flying spirit snake was on the ground, but the area where its heart was had been completely bisected away from the rest of its body. Blood splurted out from the wound in large amounts from its head-sized heart, which was also cut into 2 pieces. The flying spirit snake lay on the ground still alive, but it was not too far away from death, and the monster core had already disappeared from its body without a trace. Qin Ji couldn't help but think back to when he saw the blurry azure and violet glow. He had felt a great change overcome Jian Chen, but he didn't say anything as he felt doubt and confusion cloud his heart. Just then, the albino earthworm let out a terrible sound as well before collapsing to the ground with Shi Xianran's seal of Treasure Mountain smashed on top of its head. Even its entire body had been smashed several times with the seal to make for a serious injury. Both the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm were dead now. Only 2 remained. One was the amethyst thunder lion which was prancing about. Despite the wounds on its body, they was nowhere near anything life-threatening. Its strength was far superior to those in its grade because of its innate skill and rarity. Even an Earth Saint Master could only hope to do a sliver of damage to it. The Pangolin Emperor was the most healthy one. Scuttling about underground, it would play hide-and-seek with those on top as if it were a game rather than a battle. Appearing and disappearing randomly before attacking people in a single instance, it left behind no traces and only a major headache. The divisions fighting both the Amethyst Thunder Lion and the Pangolin Emperor had taken major casualties. At least a dozen men died fighting the lion, while many more had taken serious damage as the Tenacious continued to struggle with it. As for the Pangolin Emperor, it had already swallowed 7 men while injuring a dozen others. The Pangolin Emperor hadn't even taken any damage yet. The Amethyst Thunder Lion is far too strong, come and help us quickly, or we won't last much longer. Help us deal with the Pangolin Emperor. Seeing how the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm were killed, the others cried out for assistance with glee. Quickly extracting the monster core from the albino earthworm, Dugu Feng led his men into the forest without regard for the 2 divisions still fighting the magical beasts. Ignore them, let's go. Don't be left behind, the Immortal's cave is right in front of us. Qin Ji shouted to Jian Chen and the rest of the division as he brought 3 men with him to chase after Dugu Feng. He did not care for the corpse of the Class 5 flying spirit snake. Without looking at the flying spirit snake's corpse, Jian Chen called out to the rest of the men to follow them into the forest. After making a mad dash, Jian Chen followed Qin Ji into a cave. This cave was unnaturally deep, and with every single interval, there was a single night pearl emanating a white glow of light. The interior and cave walls were glossy as well, meaning that someone had used an incredible amount of strength to cut the walls evenly. Bang! A loud sound could be heard up ahead as the entire passageway began to tremble. Jian Chen, the yellow-clothed girl, Tianmu Ling, Yun Zheng and Senioren began to hasten their pace even more before quickly arriving at an area where everyone was gathered. Upon seeing Jian Chen enter the room, Shi Xiangran immediately activated his barrier to secure his safety. Right in front of everyone, a single stone door blocked their paths. Bastard, just who touched the mechanism here? It dropped a stone wall blocking our way in. Jieto Wukong roared in anger as he held his ruler armament. Chapter 317, Fighting over a heaven-tier battle skill. It doesn't matter what doors are blocking our way, I'll smash them apart. Dugu Feng strode forward and immediately struck the door fiercely with his fist. With a muffled sound, the stone door continued to tower over everyone else with only some dust being shaken down. At this sight, everyone was astounded. Even Dugu Feng had been stunned for a moment before muttering to himself, "Is this really a stone door?" Dugu Feng knew clearly just how much strength was put behind his fist. Even an iron door would have a hole blasted through it, but this stone door wasn't even scratched. Heavens, is this really a stone door? It's unbelievably hard. This stone door was made from a stone-like material, but it's so durable. This stone door definitely isn't an ordinary one, everyone began to chat among themselves. It doesn't matter what it's made from, but if it dares block our path, then it will be destroyed. Dugu Feng spoke coldly. His right arm held the fire sword as he prepared to swing his ruler armament. Upon seeing that Dugu Feng was about to use his ruler armament, everyone stepped back in fear of being caught in the aftermath. The ruler armament in Dugu Feng's hand began to release a great flame as he yelled. With a large swing, he smashed the sword against the stone door heavily. Bang! An ear-splitting sound could be heard as the entire cave shook from the blow. Everyone shook their heads in pain as they steadied themselves. After a while, the cave grew quiet once more. Everyone's eyes remained wide open as they looked at the stone door in shock. It continued to stand over them as if normal. Just what was used to make this stone door, it's really hard. Tian Muling stammered as she covered her mouth with her hand in shock. Even Du Gufeng found it hard to remain calm and was stunned. For such an ordinary-looking stone door to be able to take a blow from a ruler armament without any damage, it was far too much to believe. The richly dressed Qin Ji walked to the stone door and raised his hand to touch it with a calm expression. Breaking open this door will allow us entry into the Immortal's Cave. Let us have all of those with a ruler armament strike at it at the same time. I doubt this door will be able to withstand the might of 6 ruler armaments. That's right, this is the best course of action. Jieda Wukong spoke. Ha ha ha, okay then, big brothers. If big brothers can do the heavy work, this little girl will help out from the side. Whether or not this stone door breaks is all on you. The girl spoke with charm as she smiled at everyone. Then stepping toward Jian Chen, she looked at him with a loving smile. Brother Jian Chen, do you want to give it a try? Jian Chen shook his head with a bitter smile. This one has no ruler armament, so my attack would be tremendously weak. The area isn't that wide either, so it wouldn't be able to hold that many people standing side by side. I would rather not hinder everyone else. As soon as Jian Chen spoke, a large animalistic roar could be heard, causing everyone in the cave to pale. That's the amethyst thunder lion and the sounds of footsteps. God damn it, they dared to come running here. They're bringing the lion over. Everyone, let's act quick. Qin Ji yelled. Without any hesitation, Du Gufeng, Jieda Wukong, Shi Xiangran, Qin Ji and Tian Muling all stood in front of the stone door. With their ruler armaments out, they each prepared to strike. Then, suddenly, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared and covered the people inside. This caused Jian Chen to be shocked. He hadn't thought that these people with ruler armaments would have a barrier from a saint ruler around them. Abruptly turning around to look at the yellow-clothed girl, he could see her standing 10 meters away with her bowstring pulled back completely. The only difference was that there was no barrier protecting her, but Jian Chen didn't know whether or not she didn't have a saint ruler helping her or she just wasn't using it. At that moment, aside from the 6 ruler armament users, everyone drew back quickly. The energy feedback from 6 ruler armaments was enough to cause harm to any Earth Saint Master. Attack! With one command, all 6 ruler armament users struck out. An arrow flew ahead of the other attacks and collided into the stone door along with the fist-sized seal of Treasure Mountain, while the others smashed against the door in coordination. Bang! A loud sound could be heard as a large shockwave of energy exploded outward at an alarming speed, washing over everyone while the cave itself began to shake almost as if it was on the verge of collapsing in on itself. Jian Chen and the other Earth Saint Masters stuck close to the walls of the cave as a way to keep themselves rooted to the ground. At the same time, they used their saint force to enforce their bodies as a secondary form of defense. Half a breath later, the shockwave receded to a calm as the 6 ruler armament users each were dragged back 10 meters. The barriers had protected them from any harm, while only the yellow-clothed girl was quite pale in the face. Upon looking at the stone door, there were several cracks, but it was still not broken. Everyone let out a shocked gasp. The stone door was far stronger than what anyone had imagined. They didn't think that even 6 ruler armaments wouldn't be enough for them to shatter a stone door. What everyone could rejoice about was the durability of the Immortal's Cave. Even after such a heavy blow, it still had not collapsed. Again! Jieda Wukong yelled out. Immediately, the 6 people struck out once more for another terrifying unified attack that was stronger than the one before. Another explosive sound could be heard as stone pieces could be seen flying about, and the cave echoed with the sound. After the second strike, the unbelievably strong stone door had finally been shattered. Even after the stone doors shattered, Du Gufeng, Jieda Wukong, Shi Xiangran, Qin Ji, and Tian Muling didn't care for the aftermath of the explosion and all charged past the gates. Each one of them were protected by their barriers and weren't worried about being damaged by anything. Sensing their movements, Jian Chen's eyes flashed in recognition. Immediately charging straight toward the doorway, against the energy wave, Jian Chen twisted and turned in a struggle to get past. Finally, he was able to break free of the energy wave and follow the five through the opening. Beyond the stone gates was an empty space where none of the energy from the earlier strike could reach. Placed right on top of a high platform was a dark-colored wooden box. On the outside, it looked quite ordinary and didn't seem to be anything special. Seeing this box, Du Gufeng, Shi Xiangran, Jie Wukong, and Qin Ji all flew toward it without a moment of hesitation. A cyan-colored whip blew past them and in an instant, it had reached the platform and wrapped around the box before pulling it back. The four men instantly came to a compromise with each other and struck out at the box. Bang! As the box was smashed apart, a white leather book was sent flying into the air. As a result of the blast from the attack, the book continued to flap in the air as the pages. Four hands simultaneously flew out to grab at the falling book in hopes of snatching it away from everyone else. Tian Muling didn't move a foot and immediately snapped her wrist, causing a part of the whip to fly at the four men. At the same time, the head of the whip flew at the book. At this moment, the four men acted as one and smashed down on the whip with their ruler armaments. Although the whip was also a ruler armament, it wasn't able to withstand the might of four ruler armaments and was forced back down. The four men instantly arrived at the book and lashed out to grab it. Each hand latched onto a part of it and with a violent pull, each one tried to pull the book toward themselves. Chi! The string binding on the book instantly tore, causing several pages of the book to fly through the air. Combined with the energy from the earlier blow on the whip, the book pages all fluttered about through the air. Four pairs of hands zipped through the air as they collected the scattered pages. At this moment, Jian Chen suddenly appeared in a silver ray of light. Spotting two of the loose pages, he grabbed at them with lightning speed before grabbing onto another one nearby. Du Gufeng swiftly grabbed onto another two pages as well before spotting another right next to his hand. As he lifted his hand to grab at it, suddenly, a person appeared in his line of sight. This person was Jian Chen, who immediately grabbed at the piece of paper right underneath his eyes. Du Gufeng was immediately stunned before instantly growing angry as his eyes gleamed with a murderous light. After the small struggle for the pages, the book was quickly divided up by the 6 people. In the end, Tian Muling had 2 pages, Jian Chen had 4, Du Gufeng had 4, Jie Wukong had 3, Shi Xiangran had 2, and Qin Ji had 4 for a total of 19 pages. At this moment, Shi Xiangran had already flew at Jian Chen with his barrier present while his seal of Treasure Mountain flew at Jian Chen's head. To dare kill my men, I'll definitely kill you today. No one has dared steal from me before. At that moment, Jie Wukong and Du Gufeng flew at Jian Chen with their ruler armaments out and ready to kill him. Qin Ji and Tian Muling had no plans on helping out either side. Although they had fought alongside Jian Chen, but their relationship with him wasn't anything special. Shi Xiangran was a hated enemy of Jian Chen, Jie Wukong had his comrade Zhe Gu die by Jian Chen's hand, and Du Gufeng had a part of the battle skill taken away from right under his nose. Each person had a reason for fighting Jian Chen. Chapter 318, Killing 3 experts. Shi Xiangran, Jie Wukong and Du Gufeng all struck out at the same time toward Jian Chen, much to his shock. The thing that made Jian Chen extremely serious was that all 3 of them had barriers and so it would be incredibly hard for him to injure them. Furthermore, the 3 of them had a ruler armament each. If he was hit by one, then it would do an incredible amount of damage that he wouldn't be able to endure and could even die from. Even if he were to be injured, Shi Xiangran and the other 2 would never let him go or even let him out of the cave. Jian Chen's eyes gained a berserk gleam to it. Right now, he could only use his final trump card to go all out. An azure and violet glow could be seen on Jian Chen's light wind sword as he walked toward Shi Xiangran without fear and stabbed his sword straight at the barrier protecting him. Right now, Jian Chen could only place all his hopes on the azure and violet sword qi. Success or failure, it was all reliant on the sword qi since it was the strongest attack he could use. Seeing Jian Chen take the initiative to charge, Shi Xiangran revealed a happy smile on his face. With the defensive power of his barrier that even a ruler armament couldn't break, meant that Jian Chen wouldn't be able to either. Jian Chen's attack wasn't something that Shi Xiangran even cared about, so the pieces of paper within Jian Chen's hand were something that he felt were as good as his. Grabbing onto the seal of Treasure Mountain tightly, Shi Xiangran waited until he grew closer and immediately treated it like a stone as he used it to smash into Jian Chen's head. As the light wind sword made contact with Shi Xiangran's barrier, under the expecting eyes of Jian Chen, the barrier began to melt away without a sound, allowing the sword entrance. At this, Jian Chen revealed a look of joy. Without another moment of hesitation, the light wind sword immediately reached further inside and stabbed into Shi Xiangran's throat. Shi Xiangran instantly went rigid as his movements came to a grinding halt. Staring down at the spot where the sword had pierced through his barrier and into his throat, he then looked back at Jian Chen with a look of utter disbelief. Even the seal of Treasure Mountain that had left his hand to strike at Jian Chen stopped in mid-air as well. And no. That CA can't be, Shi Xiangran spoke in shock as he spat out some blood and stammered. His eyes slowly opened wide in disbelief. Du Gufeng and Jie Wukong, who were initially running at Jian Chen, immediately stopped. They watched the barrier of Shi Xiangran get pierced by Jian Chen's silver blade before it stabbed Shi Xiangran in the throat. They both understood the durability of the barrier and how even a ruler armament was useless. Even a Heaven Saint Master would need to use all of their strength in order to break apart the barrier. But right in front of their eyes, the barrier that had been protecting Shi Xiangran was penetrated by Jian Chen's sword with ease or with no resistance, almost as if it were tofu. This was something that was completely unimaginable to them both. On the other side, Qin Ji and Tian Muling both stared in disbelief as shock filled their hearts. Tian Muling's mouth dropped open in shock as she stared at Jian Chen and Shi Xiangran as motionless as a stone statue. At that moment, the yellow-clothed girl had entered the cave as well, just in time to see Jian Chen's sword stab into Shi Xiangran's throat. In mute shock, her eyes began to widen as she stared at the sight with disbelief. He broke through Shi Xiangran's barrier. The girl felt her heart surge in shock. At this moment, she didn't know what feeling was stronger, the joy from the death of Shi Xiangran or the excitement from seeing the sudden revelation of Jian Chen's superior battle strength. Jian Chen looked at his sword that had broken through Shi Xiangran's barrier with excitement. It was almost as if a heavy burden was released from his heart. After the sword spirits had awoken, they had consistently helped him increase his attacking power. Even as a great Saint Master, he had been able to kill Earth Saint Masters, and up until now, the sword spirits had never disappointed him. They had even destroyed the barrier, something that a ruler armament couldn't accomplish. With this, even those with a barrier wouldn't be as big of a threat as before. Although a ruler armament was extremely powerful, it was only capable of emitting an extremely strong strike. As long as one made sure the ruler armament didn't make contact or clash with one, then the ruler armament was no different than an ordinary saint weapon. Shi Xiangran's life quickly bled away as he continued to stare at Jian Chen with a quivering look. Slowly losing his strength, the barrier began to quickly dissipate before disappearing entirely. With a twist of his wrist, Jian Chen's sword cut through Shi Xiangran's throat in a bloody manner before pulling out. At the same time, Jian Chen quickly pocketed Shi Xiangran's space ring and the seal of Treasure Mountain for his own before turning toward Jie Wukong to fight with him. From the earlier moments, Jian Chen had recognized both Jie Wukong and Du Gufeng as his enemies. For those who were his enemies, Jian Chen had no mercy. Even more so, Jian Chen desired the Heaven-tier battle skill pages in their hands. Seeing Jian Chen come flying over, Jie Wukong's face grew ugly. Back when he was contesting for the pages he hadn't thought of Jian Chen as an opponent at all, but with Jian Chen easily breaking through Shi Xiangran's barrier, he couldn't help but feel as if his heart had been dealt a serious blow. Right now, he couldn't afford to naively think that his barrier would protect him from any harm anymore. Jie Wukong leaped back with an explosive amount of force as he brought his flame sword to swing at Jian Chen. Jian Chen knew better than to go head-on with a ruler armament. He easily dodged the swing and with an azure and violet glow of his sword, his light wind sword stabbed at the barrier protecting Jie Wukong. Without any obstruction, the barrier quickly dissolved away to reveal a small hole where the sword had touched, allowing Jie Wukong to be stabbed with no problems. Seeing that his own barrier powerless to block even a single strike, a pool of sweat began to appear on Jie Wukong's forehead as he went pale. With a single leap, he flew back and brought his weapon up to guard against the sword stab. Ding! Stabbed against the ruler armament, the azure and violet sword Qi wasn't able to break past it. Since the ruler armaments were far too strong for the currently recovering azure and violet sword Qi, they could not be damaged by the glows. At that moment, the ruler armament billowed outward with a great flame that shot at Jian Chen like a bullet. Jian Chen couldn't help but start slightly as he jumped back with his blood boiling with emotions. Jian Chen knew that ruler armaments were the remnants of a saint ruler's saint weapon, so they contained an unbelievable amount of power. Just a single strike of one would be enough for him to find it difficult to endure. Go die! Jie Wukong capitalized on Jian Chen's backward leap and instantly stabbed toward Jian Chen. Disappearing from view, Jian Chen dodged Jie Wukong's sword nimbly before stabbing at him with his own sword. The entire area began to be consumed with mirror images of Jian Chen's sword as he entrapped Jie Wukong within. In an instant, Jie Wukong was flustered by Jian Chen's movements. Immediately bringing his own ruler armament to protect himself, he attempted to find out which sword was the real one before exploiting the large energy within his ruler armament to strike Jian Chen's light wind sword. Just as Jie Wukong was about to go through the motions of his strike, he immediately came to a stop midway through his dance only to see that Jian Chen had somehow made his way behind him. His light wind sword had inexplicably split his barrier once more and stabbed through his throat from the back. Once more, this caused everyone to stare wide-eyed in amazement. No one could have imagined that Jian Chen would be able to kill Shi Xiangran in a single moment even with his barrier, and then going on to kill Jie Wukong in the next moment. Du Gufeng's face had already turned unsightly at this. He quickly moved to run toward the entrance of the cave with the speed of a bullet. He knew that he had offended Jian Chen already and wanted to escape from a difficult battle at all costs. With the superior strength that Jian Chen had just revealed, he knew he had no chance of winning. Jian Chen quickly stored away Jie Wukong's ruler armament into his space ring before taking the space ring as well and chasing after Du Gufeng with all the speed he could muster. If Du Gufeng were to escape, then Jian Chen would lose all chances of being able to learn the heaven-tier battle skill. Sensing that Jian Chen was chasing after him, the escaping Du Gufeng cried out, "Help me block him." Immediately, 4 men came up to obstruct Jian Chen's path with an incredible amount of aura leaking out of them. Included among the group was the purple-robed man. Jian Chen's eyes flashed with a large killing intent as he slashed at the 4 men with his azure and violet sword Qi-enhanced sword. The 4 men didn't know how strong the azure and violet sword Qi was, so they brought up their swords to block it. Ding 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 ding. Following the sounds of metal hitting metal, the light wind sword immediately smashed against their swords before each one of them suddenly gained a new finger-sized chip on their blades. With their saint weapons damaged, each one of the 4 men immediately felt the pain and cried out before turning pale. Taking advantage of their pain, Jian Chen went after their lives. Jian Chen was impatient to chase after Du Gufeng, so he acted quickly and full-heartedly. A first-cycle Earth Saint Master was easily manageable for him to kill. With a flash of silver, the light wind sword stabbed out 4 times. 3 of the 4 were too slow to dodge and instantly had their throats stabbed. Only the purple-robed man was able to use his saint weapon to block the strike at the last moment, causing his sword to earn another jagged mark. Now that his saint weapon had been struck twice, the middle-aged man began to spit out some blood as he looked at Jian Chen in shock. Jian Chen's light wind sword struck out in succession as he fully suppressed the man's movements. Against his attacks, the man was unable to do anything but dodge, since he knew that Jian Chen was capable of striking and damaging his saint weapon. Even as he dodged, he was still hit by Jian Chen's sword several times and was nearly stabbed straight through by the sword. In the end, he too was killed, which allowed Jian Chen to continue chasing after Dugu Feng without hesitation. Chapter 319, Return of Ming Dong. All the men crowded in the passageway hurriedly shot out of the way for Jian Chen. The struggle for the heaven-tier battle skill had only been a few moments, and no one outside of the cave had any idea what had happened inside. At this moment, they could only watch in confusion as Jian Chen chased down Dugu Feng. Wasn't everything going fine earlier? How could they suddenly start fighting? And the bigger question was, just when had Jian Chen's strength become so amazing? Jian Chen chased Dugu Feng through the passageway of the cave for some time. Following that, some of the expert subordinates quickly came to their senses and charged into the cave as well. Within the cave, Shi Xiangran and Jie Wukong lay motionless on the ground. Their blood continued to leak down onto the ground in one big puddle. Lord Wukong. Suddenly, a grieved voice could be heard as 2 middle-aged men shot into the cave like arrows to Jie Wukong's side. Looking at the hole in his throat, the men all instantly turned white before crying out loud in grief. Lord Wukong, Lord Wukong. One man shook Jie Wukong's body with an impatient shout as if trying to wake him up. Lord Wukong has already died. The other man sighed with a look of sorrow on his face. Dead? Just how is that possible? Lord Wukong had a barrier protecting him, along with a ruler armament. There isn't anyone here that could possibly kill him. The man spoke in a crazed manner. Jie Wukong's position in the clan was far beyond what was right. Not only was he the son of the patriarch, but he was also the future leader of the Jie clan. The 2 men and Zhigu came to protect him specifically. With Jie Wukong dead, it was hard to say that they would live as well. The other man gave a long sigh as he stared blankly. He didn't care for Jie Wukong's death much, but Jie Wukong's status in the clan was far too high. Since he was Wukong's bodyguard, he would be punished severely for what had just occurred. The penalty might be so heavy that Jie Wukong's father might have them both die to serve Jie Wukong in the afterlife. Who was it? Who was it that killed Lord Wukong? The man spoke with an extremely grim voice. Now that Jie Wukong was dead, he really did not want to be the only one to take on the responsibility for Jie Wukong's death. It was possible that after the gathering of the mercenaries, he would be killed. Just now, there was a youth named Jian Chen that held some grievances with our lord. He just ran off to chase Dugu Feng. Even the 4 strong, well-known guards of the Dugu clan were killed in a short moment by Jian Chen. The one who killed Lord Wukong must be Jian Chen, his hidden strength must be enormous. The other man spoke with a gloomy expression. Miss Tianmu Ling, Lord Qin Ji, if you could tell us, was the person who killed Lord Wukong, Jian Chen? Tianmu Ling and Qin Ji both nodded their heads in a stupefied manner. The fight they had just seen had caused a tremendous amount of shock to their hearts. Jian Chen had somehow destroyed the barriers placed on Shi Xiangran and Jie Wukong created by a saint ruler, which were known for being incredibly hard to destroy. After finding out who the murderer was, the 2 men both grew dark. Jian Chen was strong and was not someone they could fight against. The 2 were not willing to stay here any longer and carried Jie Wukong's body out of the cave. Neither of them were stupid. When Jian Chen came back to annihilate everyone, it would be in their best interests to run far away with Jie Wukong's body. They would wait for the end of the gathering of the mercenaries and report it to the elders in hope that the patriarch would be lenient in his punishment. Running away from the clan was not going to work, and would only speed up their deaths. The cave's right over there, hurry up and get in. Let them deal with the amethyst thunder lion. Hurry up, the cave's right in front of us. Outside the cave, a group of miserable-looking men were all running to it as fast as possible. Right behind them, the small, mountain-like amethyst thunder lion continued to shoot lightning from its mouth. Each arc of lightning burnt a person into a crisp as the golden pangolin emperor continued to strike at the other humans not too far away. Within the group, not only were there the original divisions of Earth Saint Masters, but also at least 100 great Saint Masters. After the two divisions with the ruler armaments had killed 2 of the magical beasts and entered the cave, the great Saint Masters all decided to risk it and charge forward. In hopes of obtaining the treasure within, each one threw away their lives to charge toward the cave. The influx of these great Saint Masters had aroused the attentions of the remaining 2 magical beasts. Thus, the already suffering divisions quickly renounced their attempts to kill the magical beasts, and ran for the Immortals' cave at full speed. With no strong individual to control the magical beasts, the situation had naturally gotten worse for the great Saint Masters. The Earth Saint Masters didn't care and left the great Saint Masters to deal with the ire of the magical beasts. Suddenly, a single shadow could be seen flying through the sky with an explosive wind rippling through the air. Despite many people seeing the shadow's image, no one cared for it at this moment. Just as this shadow receded away, another shadow quickly streaked through the air before chasing after the first one. This was Jian Chen chasing after Dugu Feng. Jian Chen was utilizing most of his speed by catapulting himself off of the trees. With each launch, he flew forward another 10 extra meters, and was slowly reducing the distance between Dugu Feng and himself. Sensing that Jian Chen was still chasing him, Dugu Feng's face grew startled as he thought to himself, could Fifth Uncle and the other 3 men have been killed by Jian Chen? No. There's no way. Fifth Uncle was at the 5th cycle Earth Saint Master, there's no way for him to be killed by Jian Chen that quickly. There was disbelief as that thought went through his mind. He knew that Jian Chen's strength was far higher than what he had thought if he could disregard the barriers on both Shi Xiangran and Jie Wukong. He shouldn't be strong enough to kill his 5th uncle and the 3 other 3rd cycle Earth Saint Master bodyguards even if he were to use a ruler armament. By this point, Dugu Feng had already deemed Jian Chen to be a terrifying existence that he could not afford to fight. He increased his speed even more, determined to protect his ruler armament. Dugu Feng wasn't a man that feared death, but he wanted to prevent the ruler armament from falling into any other man's hands. Thus, he could only run away. The ruler armament was something every clan would pay a heavy price for, and would tremendously impact the clan's power and influence. Dugu Feng absolutely could not allow his ruler armament to fall into someone else's hands. Otherwise, his clan would be condemned to a lifetime of shame that could not be recovered from. The 2 men's speed slowly increased to the maximum. 10 kilometers had been traveled in a short amount of time. Running past the forest, they reached a clearing. Right now, Jian Chen had closed the distance to Dugu Feng. By now, there was only a single kilometer separating the 2. Even though Dugu Feng wasn't a wind attribute, his running speed was still quite superior to most, so even Jian Chen had to exert a lot of energy to chase after him. At this moment, 10 kilometers away from Jian Chen, a black-robed youth with hair that reached down to his waist was quickly running toward a forest. This youth looked to be around 27 or 28-year-old, and had a firm look on his face. I've heard that the cave of a previous cultivator was around here and contains a heaven-tier battle skill. People even say that the 5 experts were all gathered there as well. Bah, I should go take a look myself, hopefully I'll be able to find him. The black-robed youth muttered to himself. Just then, the black-robed youth saw 2 figures appear a few kilometers away from him, quickly charging over in his direction. Seeing the two people, the youth revealed a look of disdain as he muttered, "Another two men rushing to their deaths. I hope they're not too weak, I want to test out my strength." With that, the youth examined the two, but the moment he saw their faces, a look of shock overtook it. "Are my eyes going bad? This is too much of a coincidence." The black-robed youth spoke as he kneaded his eyes gently. With a closer look, he concentrated on the two men before smiling widely and charging straight at them. "Friend, hold off the man behind me and the Dugu clan will reward you handsomely." Dugu Feng had already thrown away his face and reputation for the sake of preserving the ruler armament. While he knew that he was not an opponent for Jian Chen, he would much rather fight Jian Chen to the death than try to flee. For the sake of the ruler armament, he could not choose this option. Hearing Dugu Feng's words, the black-robed youth was stunned for a moment before he smiled meaningfully. With a simple movement, a wind attribute Saint force could be seen as it covered the youth's body. Like an arrow, he flew toward Dugu Feng and Jian Chen with a faster speed than before. The black-robed youth's speed was almost inconceivable. In a moment he had traveled several kilometers, causing both Jian Chen and Dugu Feng to be shocked. The moment Jian Chen saw the youth's face, he went still as a surge of emotions swelled up in him. Dugu Feng was shocked for a moment before becoming happy. He didn't think that his luck would be good enough to meet such a strong person. With his fast speed, even if he wasn't able to defeat Jian Chen, he would at the very least keep him occupied. "Friend, help me hold up the man behind me and the Dugu clan will reward you." Dugu Feng spoke once more with a relaxed voice. The youth revealed a strange smile, but he did not respond to Dugu Feng. Bringing out his cyan-colored longsword, he quickly slashed at Dugu Feng with an alarming speed. Bringing up his ruler armament to defend himself, Dugu Feng quickly protected himself. The youth staggered back a few steps as his feet dragged across the ground. What was more shocking was that the ruler armament-wielding Dugu Feng had also been forced back 3 steps by the ordinary-looking sword of the youth. "Friend, what is the meaning of this?" Dugu Feng's face grew dark before shock filled his face. The youth's strength was extraordinary, and even after blocking the sword, his inner organs had felt the vibration from the blow. Could this average-looking youth somehow be a heaven saint master? Dugu Feng thought to himself in terror. The youth recollected himself before looking at the sword in Dugu Feng's hands with some surprise before cursing out loud, "Fuck," so it was a ruler armament. With the youth holding up Dugu Feng, Jian Chen had quickly caught up. Standing 20 meters away from Dugu Feng's back, he smiled at the black-robed youth. The youth looked at Jian Chen with a happy smile before waving his hands. "Hey, Jian Chen. I didn't think I'd meet you in such a manner. You seem to be doing quite well if you can bring even a ruler armament user to heel." Jian Chen revealed a happy smile on his face. "Ming Dong, it's been almost a year since we last saw each other, I barely recognized you." This one youth was unexpectedly Ming Dong, who had stayed in the Midair Shrine. Nearly a year had passed, but his strength had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Chapter 320, Blood Oath. After nearly a year, Ming Dong had undergone an extreme transformation. Right now, with Ming Dong standing calmly right there, he was exuding a mountainous aura that seemed almost boundless. From head to toe, the aura he was exuding was what a strong individual would display. It was as if he had experienced many different life and death battles and had become a hardened soldier. Unconsciously, he was radiating killing intent that was unlike anything else and made everyone around feel as if their hearts were being pressured by it. Ming Dong, right now, was almost as if he were a completely different person than the one from a year ago. Jian Chen couldn't help but feel some doubt. Was this black-robed youth in front of him the Ming Dong he knew? Ming Dong laughed with an excited look on his face. "Jian Chen, I was getting worried about where I should go to find you. I didn't think that I'd be able to find you so fast. This must be what the heavens have decreed or that we were just destined to see each other." Upon hearing the conversation between Jian Chen and this black-clothed youth, Dugu Feng instantly grew extremely ugly. Before, he had been extremely overjoyed to see the large amount of power of this youth, but he didn't think that the two men would somehow know each other. And from the look of things, the two men were on extremely good terms with each other. Dugu Feng was suddenly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Right in front of him was a tiger and behind him was a wolf. Both of them were extremely fast, especially the newcomer's speed. Dugu Feng had already given up on running away since he knew that even if he were to run at full speed, he wouldn't be able to escape from the wind-attributed Ming Dong. There was no way for him to run away from the two. Dugu Feng's face grew deathly serious. He wasn't afraid of death at all, but the ruler armament was something he couldn't afford to lose. If it were to fall into someone else's hands, then his clan would be humiliated to the highest degree. Without a ruler armament, then his clan's power would plummet. That was because if a sixth cycle Heaven Saint Master were to use a ruler armament, they would be capable of fighting a saint ruler. His fighting ability would only be describable as a being able to shatter the heavens and scorch the earth. Ming Dong, let's catch up later, for now, let's take care of the business in front of us. Jian Chen smiled. Ming Dong turned to look at the serious Dugu Feng with his own smile. That's fine, Jian Chen, this guy has a ruler armament. That means he has a strong background, you should prepare yourself. Shrugging, Jian Chen spoke helplessly, there's no other way, although it'll be a headache, but some headaches have to be endured. I've already killed 2 other ruler armament users, so trouble is unavoidable, another one shouldn't matter too much. Upon hearing Jian Chen's words, Ming Dong's eyes widened in amazement. No way, you've killed 2 people with ruler armaments? You're too strong now. Did those 2 ruler armament users have no barriers to protect themselves? Jian Chen laughed. Ming Dong, I didn't think you would know about ruler armaments or even about the barriers. It seems that you've learned a lot in 1 year. Of course. Uncle Tian has treated me nicely and spent a lot of energy to try and bring up my strength from the great Saint Master to where I am now in the span of half a year. He also taught me many things. Ming Dong pointed at Dugu Feng. Jian Chen, this person's strength is quite decent, could you give him to me to practice? Ever since I left Uncle Tian a few days ago, I haven't been able to test out my strength properly. Ming Dong's words left Dugu Feng speechless. He could have sworn that he heard the one called Ming Dong say that within half a year, he went from the great Saint Master level to a level where he could contend against a ruler armament user without injuries and even knock them back. Dugu Feng had found this hard to believe. Anyone in the Earth Saint Master level would not be able to rely on their own strength and yet still be able to injure a ruler armament person, but this black-robed youth was the very first. That's fine then, Ming Dong, I'll leave this to you. Let me see just how much you've improved in the span of a year. Jian Chen leaped back and gave the space to Ming Dong. He approved of the speed in which Ming Dong had improved and was not worried that Dugu Feng would be able to run away from Ming Dong. Wait one moment. Dugu Feng cried out in a hurried manner, turning to look at Jian Chen. He asked, we had some misunderstandings before, but that is only a minor problem and not worth chasing me down without mercy. Did you want the pages of the Heaven Tier battle skill or my ruler armament? What do you think? Jian Chen joked as he looked at him with a smile. If you want the pages, then I'll give it to you as well as everything else in my space belt. But if you try to take the ruler armament, then I can tell you right now, it will bring you an endless amount of trouble. A ruler armament is something extremely important to my clan and no one in the clan would allow an outsider to take possession of it. Even if you kill me and take the ruler armament, then our clan will definitely do whatever it takes to chase you throughout the continent and kill you. Even the ancestor of our clan will personally come after you. Dugu Feng warned. Jian Chen's expression didn't change as he spoke casually. I've already killed 2 men who had barriers and ruler armaments. Do you think I'm afraid of that? Dugu Feng went white as he mentally made that realization. He was afraid that Jian Chen had an equally strong clan supporting him and was even stronger than the Dugu clan. If that clan was too strong, then he was afraid that if the ruler armament was taken from his clan, they wouldn't be able to steal it back from that clan. Even if they tried to steal it back, they would still be mocked by everyone else and the entire clan would be humiliated. Suddenly, Dugu Feng made up his mind. Smashing against the part where his heart was with his fist, Dugu Feng spat out some blood onto his fingers and began to paint in midair. His fingers gently moved through the air as he began to draw a strange type of image. With each stroke, a blood-colored trace could be seen still before it all finally became a bloody pattern. Jian Chen looked at Dugu Feng with confusion at what he was doing. Whatever this strange thing was, this was the very first time he had heard or seen such a thing. Ming Dong walked over from Dugu Feng's back and watched in amazement at the bloody pattern and a look of utter disbelief. Jian Chen, I, Dugu Feng, make a blood oath to you today. If you allow me to return the ruler armament to my clan, Dugu Feng will see you as my king. Wherever you go, I will follow, whatever order you command, I will strive to accomplish to my dying breath. Dugu Feng stared at Jian Chen unwaveringly as he spoke with determination and some reluctance. For the sake of protecting the ruler armament, he was willing to follow Jian Chen for his entire life for the sake of his family that he loved. He did not wish to see his family become condemned by everyone, and so, he was willing to give up his own life. Jian Chen was speechless as he looked at Dugu Feng with a surprised expression. Although he didn't know what a blood oath was, whatever Dugu Feng had said truly surprised him. Ming Dong's eyes slowly looked at the strange blood pattern left by Dugu Feng as he spoke, a blood oath. I've heard that from ancient times until now this is a binding promise that is written using one's heart blood as a way for the soul to take form in the oath. It is said that the person who holds the oath also controls the life of the person who made the pledge. With just a single thought, the person who made the oath will have their body and soul extinguished. What's even scarier is that if the person who holds the oath dies, then the one that made the oath will share the same fate. I didn't think that you would know the blood oath from ancient times. Upon hearing Ming Dong's explanation, Jian Chen finally had some understanding of what a blood oath was. He didn't think that this world would have such a bizarre thing. Truly, this strange world was filled with magical things. Even at Ming Dong's words, Dugu Feng didn't blink and looked at Jian Chen. If you allow me to bring the ruler armament back to my clan, then you will be my king, and I will act out your orders no matter what the task is without complaint. If you wish for my ruler armament, then I will be dead either way without any form of protection. What is your answer? Fine, I'll let you bring back your ruler armament to your clan, remember your promise. Jian Chen spoke instantly. To him, a ruler armament was truly strong, but in the end, it was still just a weapon. Dugu Feng was a living person with room for growth. Furthermore, no one knew for certain whether or not Dugu Feng would become a saint ruler. Dugu Feng looked at Jian Chen intensely before saying, as of today, I Dugu Feng formally separate myself from the Dugu clan. From now on, whatever I, Dugu Feng, do, it will not be related to the Dugu clan. My life and my death will bear no relations to the clan, and I will only obey you on any command but those relating to the Dugu clan. I am no longer a part of the clan, and will not be able to use the clan in any way. Jian Chen revealed a small smile full of admiration toward Dugu Feng as he spoke instantly, I promise you, you will be you. The Dugu clan will be the Dugu clan. I will definitely not exploit the Dugu clan's power and will definitely not pit you against them. I won't force the secrets of the Dugu clan from you either. As long as you are willing, then that is enough for me. Fine, from here on out, I, Dugu Feng, will serve you as my king. As long as you don't try to bring harm to my clan, then please accept my blood oath. Dugu Feng spoke with a refreshed tone. Chapter 321, Intact Heaven Tier Battle Skill 1. Jian Chen looked at the floating blood pattern that Dugu Feng had drawn and spoke, "Du Feng, you are a true man. I, Jian Chen, admire you. This blood oath is not something I want. I have no desire to control your life, but the things you promised to do I am still waiting on." Hearing this, Du Feng was stunned. Looking at Jian Chen in disbelief, he said, "Do you really trust me? Are you not afraid of me going back on my word?" "That's right. I believe in a person of your character. Of course, if you are a person that goes back on your word, then I can only blame myself for being blind." Jian Chen spoke with no hesitation as if he fully trusted Du Feng's words. Despite the fact Jian Chen could control Du Feng's life with the blood oath, Jian Chen didn't need a person of empty strength. He needed a true comrade, someone with flesh and blood with his own spirit and self-thought. Self-independency was the only way to reveal Du Feng's true potential. Although accepting the blood oath would allow Jian Chen to be able to sleep worry-free without fear of being betrayed, Du Feng would become nothing more than a soulless person. This would bear no major change on Du Feng's power, but in the end, Jian Chen would never hold Du Feng's true loyalty. Du Feng stared at Jian Chen in a daze, full of disbelief. At this moment, he was looking at Jian Chen in a whole new light, from a stranger to a comrade that he had fought and lived through multiple battles with, thus emotions began to fill up in his eyes. Du Feng's fists unconsciously began to tighten as he stared at the handsome and younger Jian Chen before speaking, "You needn't worry then. I, Du Feng, am not a person that goes back on his word. When I return the ruler armament to my clan, then I will immediately come back to fulfill my promise." Jian Chen nodded his head with a smile. The matter between him and Du Feng seemed to have been settled in a way that Jian Chen had not expected. He now had Du Feng's loyalty, so Jian Chen was happy. Ming Dong's strength had also made leaps and bounds, and with the addition of the equally strong Du Feng, it could be said that the Flame Mercenaries made another promotion in strength. With this expansion in strength, the amount of power Jian Chen was controlling now was on a larger scale. Du Feng, you should continue to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries. With your strength, you should be able to make a name for yourself and make it within the top 10. The rewards are extraordinarily rich. This is not an opportunity that should be missed. Jian Chen spoke. Du Feng nodded his head, "Fine, after the gathering of the mercenaries are over, everything I earn will be given to you. I am no longer from the Du clan, so my achievements will be unrelated to them." Jian Chen shook his head, "That won't be necessary. As long as you make the achievements yourself, then the reward is yours. Du Feng, I, Jian Chen, admire you as a true man. In the future, you will be a brother to us all. I hope that everyone can be honest with each other and that we can work together." Hearing his words, Du Feng began to feel emotional as his voice began to tremble while he spoke. "Fine, I will be your comrade and will not permit anyone to do anything to cause harm to us. Otherwise, anyone that tries will not escape from me." Du Feng spoke heroically. From this moment, the proud heart of Du Feng had finally been influenced completely by Jian Chen. I didn't think we'd earn one more friend from this. Du Feng, I am called Ming Dong, you can just call me by that. The previous offenses I may have spoken, please do not take offense to them. I, Ming Dong, truly wish to apologize for this. Ming Dong too admired Du Feng's character and smiled at him with a refreshed look. Du Feng couldn't help but have a small smile on his face as he clasped a hand on Ming Dong's shoulder. "Then I'll be calling you Ming Dong in the future. Today has been a lucky day for me to be able to come across two outstanding geniuses and become their comrade. You two are even younger than me, but you two are inversely stronger than me. Especially you, Ming Dong, with your own strength, you were able to receive a blow from my ruler armament and even caused me to be sent back. Could you be a Heaven Saint Master?" Ming Dong laughed loudly. "It's not that extreme, I am only at the peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level. Although there is only one more step until the Heaven Saint Master realm, this step will still take me another 3 years at the least to cross. What, your strength has already reached the peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level? As soon as Ming Dong finished talking, Jian Chen spoke in surprise as his eyes widened in disbelief. In less than a year, Ming Dong had gone from a great Saint Master to a peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. This was a frightening pace that even the words, lightning quick, wouldn't be able to describe. That was because to become an Earth Saint Master, an unbelievable amount of energy was needed to make the breakthrough. The amount of energy, however, to become a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master was immeasurable. Yet, Ming Dong had somehow managed to pull off the impossible within the span of a single year. Even Jian Chen at the moment was only a 1st cycle Earth Saint Master. Du Gufeng regarded Ming Dong's strength with astonishment. He didn't think that Ming Dong was anywhere past the age of 28. This was younger than he was by 2 years, but the gap in strength between the two was vast. For him to be one step away from the Heaven Saint Master level, this type of achievement made the heaven-sent genius Du Gufeng feel eclipsed. Seeing the look on Jian Chen's face, Ming Dong laughed as he enjoyed the expression. Jian Chen, you shouldn't look so surprised. For the sake of improving my strength, Uncle Tian expended a lot of his energy and used an unmeasurable amount of heavenly treasures to improve my strength. Originally, Uncle Tian had planned on raising my strength to the Heaven Saint Master realm. Unfortunately, with my current foundation, if I were to become a Heaven Saint Master, then my foundation would be shattered. For the sake of my future cultivation path, he forced my strength to hover around the peak 6th cycle. Then, with his absolute strength, he confined my energy within my body and told me to not try and make the breakthrough for 3 years. Hearing this, Du Gufeng felt shock in his heart before asking, Ming Dong, your Uncle Tian is quite amazing. He must be a saint ruler at the very least. Ming Dong's mouth raised up by a small amount as he smiled. My Uncle Tian is extraordinarily strong. However strong he is, I don't know, but I did hear that 5,000 years ago, Uncle Tian was a saint ruler. What? 5,000 years ago he was a saint ruler. Du Gufeng's face lost color as his eyes grew so wide, they were in danger of falling to the ground. He was that shocked. What, Du Gufeng, is there something wrong? Ming Dong had a crafty smile on his face as he pretended to be confused. And no. There's nothing. Du Gufeng spoke out in a rush as his forehead began to collect sweat drops. His face grew white as he spoke. This was the first time since Jian Chen came by that he had lost his composure. It seems Du Gufeng most likely knows something, otherwise, he would not be shocked to such a degree to hear about a 5,000-year-old saint ruler. Jian Chen thought to himself as he observed him. There's still a few of the Heaven Tier battle skill pages I haven't yet collected back in the cave. We should hurry on back. Jian Chen spoke. After that, the 3 men quickly dashed toward the cave as Jian Chen began to worry about the few pages left in Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling's hands. Thus, their speed wasn't slow at all. Not too long after, the 3 men quickly came near the area of the cave. As the 3 men approached the area where everyone fought the 4 magical beasts, a loud roar could be heard from farther away before the blood-soaked and furious Amethyst Thunder Lion came charging at the 3. What a strong force, I've finally come across a strong opponent. Let me at him, you two shouldn't take this away from me. Ming Dong stared at the Amethyst Thunder Lion and charged at it with his own saint weapon. Ming Dong, after you're done with the Amethyst Thunder Lion, come meet up with us in the cave, we'll be heading in first. Jian Chen spoke to Ming Dong as he charged. Right now Ming Dong's strength was already strong enough to knock back a ruler armament user without harm. He would be able to deal with the heavily injured Amethyst Thunder Lion with ease. Got it. Ming Dong replied. Ah, that's right, there still might be the Pangolin Emperor hidden below ground, be careful of it. Jian Chen warned him. Afterward, Jian Chen and Du Gufeng swiftly arrived nearby the cave where they saw a large amount of men gathered outside who were cursing loudly. For what reason are you blocking us from entering? This cave isn't yours. That's right, you all are too arrogant. This immortal's cave isn't yours, just what right do you have to seize it for yourselves? Don't think that just because you have the strength to monopolize the cave that we won't be able to enter. If we all unite, we will be able to make a break into the cave. Hurry up and get out of the way for us. Although our strengths aren't equal to yours, we are not afraid of you. From far away, Dugufeng and Jianchen could hear the sounds of curses as everyone was blocked entry into the cave. Quickly, Jianchen and Dugufeng landed on the ground. Dugufeng then roared out loud to the crowd, "Whoever blocks our path should move aside." His voice was so loud that everyone's eardrums shook. Chapter 322, Intact Heaven Tier Battle Skill 2. As soon as Dugufeng yelled out loud, everyone grew quiet as they bit back their anger for the ones blocking the cave. Dugu's commotion had instantly earned their new ire and immediately, everyone began to curse at him. Fuck, who dares shout so loud? Are they waiting for death? Who's yelling out so fucking loud? Come out. Fucking hell, such arrogance. Hurry up and come out. If you wish to die, allow brother here to show you the road. Suddenly, after the men shouted their curses, they turned around to look at the flame sword-wielding Dugufeng and the white-robed Jianchen. Immediately, all the cursing stopped as their faces registered shock while the few that cursed at them immediately paled. In a split moment, the entire place went quiet. Right in front of them was Dugufeng of the 5 experts and an incredibly strong individual, Jianchen. Not a single person there dared to even breathe loudly. Whoever was just cursing at us, step on out immediately. Dugufeng barked out loud with a serious expression. Not a single person made a sound, and not a single person moved. Everyone stood there silently as those who cursed at them felt their hearts beat crazily. At the same time, everyone began to make way for the two. Dugufeng looked at everyone slowly, evidently not willing to let those bastards who cursed at them go. It's fine, there's no need to bother about something like this. Our first priority are those pages. Jianchen spoke to Dugufeng before quickly running past the crowd and toward the cave's interior. Dugufeng sneered at everyone but followed Jianchen straight away without another word. Right in front of the cave stood several men which included Senioren and Yunzheng. In total, there were 8 men guarding the place that were pushing back several hundred men. 4 of the other men were from Qin Ji's group while the last 2 were from Tianmuling. Jianchen, you're finally back. Hurry up and enter or else the items will all be taken by them. Senioren wailed in an impatient manner. Senioren, who told you two to guard this place? Jianchen spoke in bafflement toward Yunzheng and Senioren. It was all because of that girl named Tianmuling. Thanks to her coaxing, she had Yunzheng and I brought over here to stand guard, leaving the 3 of them inside still. Senior An's face revealed a sour expression, showing that he was evidently not there by free will. Jianchen slapped Senior An's shoulder with a stern face. You two keep guard here. Be assured, as long as there is a prophet, Jianchen won't forget about you too. That's fine, Jianchen, you don't need to say such words to me. Hurry up and go, otherwise all of the items will be taken and we'll be stuck with a deficit. Senioren said. Without another word and under everyone's watchful eye, he and Dugufeng quickly disappeared into the cave. Strange, wasn't he chasing after Dugufeng a while ago? He even killed several of the Earth Saint Masters of the Dugu clan, but he just came back with Dugufeng as if they had nothing between them in the first place. Right, that's awfully strange. Could Jianchen and Dugufeng have made some sort of secret agreement? I doubt it. Jianchen has already killed several of the Dugu clansmen. With Dugufeng's temper, there's no way they would have made a compromise. There has to be something we don't know. As for those men of Qin Ji's group, they began to whisper among each other. Walking into the cave, Jian Chen saw the 4 men he had killed from the Dugu clan. Instantly his face took on a forced smile. Previously, he hadn't thought that this matter with Dugu Feng would take on such a drastic change. Thus, when he fought against Dugu Feng's clansmen, he hadn't held back. With such an urgent matter at hand, Jian Chen wasn't lenient on them so he could chase Dugu Feng, otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to make it through in time. Right now, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel a headache come to him. In the current situation, it was quite difficult to explain to Dugu Feng what happened. After all, he and Dugu Feng had already laid down their arms and were friends now, not enemies. Dugu Feng naturally knew that the 4 Earth Saint Masters he had brought with him had all died by Jian Chen's hands. As if he knew what Jian Chen was thinking, he said, "They are from the Dugu clan and have nothing to do with me." Furthermore, they were only members from the outside branch. 2 of them were actually disciples accepted into the Dugu clan and are not core members. They were conveniently younger than 50 years old, so my father hired them to be my bodyguards. Hearing Dugu Feng's words, Jian Chen let out a breath in relief. Dugu Feng had a small smile on his face. "It seems my choice was quite smart. I didn't follow the wrong person. You and Ming Dong are both heaven-sent geniuses of superior talent than I. I believe that if I follow you too, I will definitely experience things far more spectacular than my own experiences." Perhaps. Jian Chen spoke vaguely. Afterward, the 2 men flew into the cave only to see Qin Ji, Tian Muling, and the yellow-clothed girl flying all over the place as if trying to find the treasure. Shi Xiangran's body lay in a faraway area with no one to care about while Jieto Wukong's body had been carried away. When they saw Jian Chen and Dugu Feng walk back into the cave almost as if nothing had happened between the 2, Qin Ji, Tian Muling, and the yellow-clothed girl became stunned as if they saw the impossible happen. They were so shocked that they couldn't help but stop where they were. "Jian Chen, you too?" Qin Ji was filled with confusion as he stared at Jian Chen and Dugu Feng. The 2 of them didn't look at all like they had been fighting. Tian Muling looked at the both of them and asked, "Could it be that you two didn't fight?" Jian Chen looked at Tian Muling puzzled. "Fight? Just why would we fight?" "Because," Tian Muling was speechless as she tried to find the right words to say. She couldn't tell Jian Chen, "You had just killed 4 of the Earth Saint Masters of the Dugu clan, are you and Dugu Feng not mortal enemies?" She wasn't that stupid. The puzzled Tian Muling and Qin Ji didn't know just what had happened between Jian Chen and Dugu Feng, but it didn't take an idiot to know that something secretive had happened. However, they were tactful enough to not ask. There was definitely some sort of shameful business. The yellow-clothed girl spoke in a single sentence with her sing-song voice. Jian Chen laughed with an embarrassed smile. It was nothing that shameful. Then, Jian Chen's face grew serious as he looked at Qin Ji and Tian Muling. Before he could say anything, Qin Ji immediately took out the pages to the Heaven-tier battle skill from his space ring and said before Jian Chen could open his mouth, "Jian Chen, the 2 of us have fought side by side, no one else can say the same. These pages are of no use to me, so I gift them to you. You have a much bigger need for these than I do." Walking up to Jian Chen, Qin Ji gave the leather book and his pages to Jian Chen. Qin Ji's preemptive action had left Jian Chen speechless. With a charming smile, he replied, "I've no words to describe my gratitude. I, Jian Chen, will remember this." With that, he took the papers with joy. Dugu Feng had already given his pages to Jian Chen long before. With Qin Ji's pages, Jian Chen now had 17 of the 19 pages. That meant only the 2 pages from Tian Muling were left until he had all of the pages to the Heaven-tier battle skill. Jian Chen looked at Tian Muling with a faint smile. "Sister Tian Muling, would it be possible for you to hand over those 2 pages?" Recovering from her shock from seeing Jian Chen and Dugu Feng return safely, Tian Muling laughed as she replied, "Little brother, if your elder sister refused, then you would have killed this older sister." With that, she assumed a miserable expression, causing anyone that looked at her to take pity. Jian Chen gave an embarrassed smile. Sister Tianmu Ling likes to joke, I see. I have no grievances with you, why would I want to kill you? However, the 2 pages you have are worth nothing by themselves, and I am coincidentally short 2 pages. Could it be that you don't wish to see this heaven-tier battle skill to enter this world and be eternally disgraced? Brother Jian Chen's words have some meaning to them. An intact heaven-tier battle skill is quite fetching to the eye. If it were to be uncompleted, it would be a barbaric act of crime. With that, Tianmu Ling looked at Jian Chen with a charming stare as her jade-white arm slowly pressed against Jian Chen's dirty sword as she exhaled slowly. Big brother, how about this, you can hand over the heaven-tier battle skill pages to elder sister to complete it. Would this work? Of course, your older sister will not treat you unfairly. Tianmu Ling's other arm pressed against Jian Chen's shoulder with an increasing amount of weight as she began to hang off of him. Her rosy red lips were several centimeters away from Jian Chen's lips, and with each word, her breath could be felt on his lips. This was a strange sensation that exuded charm and seduction that if not for his own determination, his heart would have been in turmoil. When Jian Chen heard her words, his face instantly changed expressions. He desperately wanted this heaven-tier battle skill, and since they were incredibly hard to obtain, just how could he give it away so easily? Jian Chen's change in expression had been noticed by Tianmu Ling straight away. Ayo, brother, your face was so handsome before, how could it make such a drastic change? Your elder sister was only joking with you. If you wish for the pages in your elder sister's hands, you must fulfill a request of mine. What request? Jian Chen immediately spoke with urgency. It seems brother Jian Chen desires this heaven-tier battle skill. Then your elder sister won't embarrass you. This request is rather simple, as long as you give your elder sister a lip-to-lip kiss, then that will be it. How about it? Is it not simple? Tianmu Ling's lips were still several centimeters away from Jian Chen's, and each word spoken had made her breath press against Jian Chen for an itchy effect. Upon hearing Tianmu Ling's simple request, Jian Chen became speechless as a fine layer of sweat appeared on his face. Her words had been explicit, causing Jian Chen to grow red in embarrassment. Humph. Slut. Shameless. On the other side, the yellow-clothed girl stared at Tianmu Ling in disgust as she gnashed her teeth together. When she had seen just how intimate Tianmu Ling was to Jian Chen, she had all of a sudden felt an uncomfortable feeling well up inside of her for unknown reasons. I've almost forgotten about brother's lover over there. Look, your lover is beginning to get jealous. Tianmu Ling laughed as she gave a charming wink to her, causing the other girl's chest to move up and down in anger before Tianmu Ling spoke. You shouldn't speak such insane words. Tianmu Ling was an expert at these types of affairs. The yellow-clothed girl was not an opponent for her. Forget it, I remember brother's words now. Little sister's temper isn't good, it's terrible. I won't tease you any more then, little brother. If you want the heaven-tier battle skill pages, then take them. Your elder sister will give them to you. This type of joke isn't something your sister likes. Tianmu Ling lifted herself off of Jian Chen's shoulder and took out the 2 remaining pages from her space belt. Then, with a sideways glance, she spoke to Jian Chen, little brother, don't forget, you owe me a kiss. Jian Chen hurriedly took the remaining 2 pages and quickly began to assemble all of the pages on the ground. As for Tianmu Ling's last few words, he hadn't paid attention to them. The yellow-clothed girl stared furiously at Tianmu Ling as if she wanted nothing more than to cut her up into 1,000 pieces. To face off against a person that would speak obscenities at a woman, it really annoyed her. This little girl is quite interesting. Tianmu Ling looked away from her and muttered her own thoughts to herself with a small smile. Then, disregarding Jian Chen, she began to search the cave once more. Soon enough, Jian Chen had completely pieced together the 19 pages. This heaven-tier battle skill was written on some sort of unknown magical beast leather, but while it was abnormally soft, its toughness was also very apparent, meaning it would not be damaged easily. Written on the cover of the battle skill were the words Heaven's Stolen Fortune. At these words, Jian Chen began to shiver in happiness as he looked at the entirety of the battle skill. This Heaven's Stolen Fortune was an extraordinarily magical heaven-tier battle skill. It allowed for one to temporarily increase one's strength 3 to 10 times over at the cost of the rate of their Saint Force consumption being increased equally. The rate in which one's strength was multiplied is reflected upon how quickly they used up Saint Force. If a person's strength was multiplied 10 times over, then a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master would be able to fight a Heaven Saint Master and could even kill one. Naturally, this was only Jian Chen's guess. After all, there was no Heaven Saint Master for him to fight, so he would not know how strong he would be. Chapter 323, Skeleton of the Saint Ruler. 1. Jian Chen could feel his emotions stirring as he read the heaven-tier battle skill The Heaven's Stolen Fortune. Jian Chen had long since knew about the rarity of a battle skill since he had left the Changyang clan. Even an inferior human-tier battle skill was worth thousands of coins and could not be acquired by the most inferior of mercenaries. Right now he had a heaven-tier battle skill, so his heart was naturally moved with joy that could not be described. Jian Chen knew clearly how precious heaven-tier battle skills were and could not be exaggerated to any degree. Any time a heaven-tier battle skill appeared within the continent, a bloody war would follow straight away and would eventually lead to an even bigger conflict. On the Tianyuan continent, there were not many heaven-tier battle skills. Each time one appeared, countless of Earth Saint Masters and Heaven Saint Masters would fight each other for it. Some Heaven Saint Masters fell to their deaths because of this. Because of the rarity of a precious heaven-tier battle skill, many similarly priced heaven-tier cultivation methods were more highly sought for. It would seem that this Heaven's Stolen Fortune was capable of providing enough energy to rebel against the heavens. Jian Chen desperately wanted to flip through the pages, but he was a rational person and forced his surging emotions and stored the heaven-tier battle skill within his space ring with dissatisfaction. As soon as the battle skill was stored in his space ring, Jian Chen's emotions were quickly calmed down. Looking around at the people who were searching the cave, he began to join them. The cave was extremely large and spacious. Hanging right on the ceiling of the cave was a single head-sized night pearl that illuminated the entire cave with its shiny glow. At the front of the cave was a single high platform that had contained the wooden box with the heaven-tier battle skill. In the middle was a single stone table with a small pile of dust gathered on it. The stone table looked as if it was made from the very same material as the stone door that was protecting the cave out in front. On it was a single chessboard, indicating that the previous owner of the cave loved to play chess. Right next to a wall was a single haphazardly made wooden bookshelf with several books on it. These books had clearly been thumbed through by Qin Ji's men, since there were dust piles on the floor in front of the bookshelf. Jian Chen walked up to the bookshelf and grabbed a book with a sudden look of shock on his face. All of these books were human-tier battle skills. Jian Chen swiftly rummaged through the remaining books to find that 2 of the books were advanced human-tier battle skills and the rest were Earth-tier battle skills. 4 of them were primary Earth-tier battle skills and 2 were Middle Earth-tier battle skills. This discovery had left Jian Chen in a pleasant mood since this was quite a big find. Since he grew up in a rich clan and had a ruler armament, Qin Ji and his men were all men with eyes that were taller than their heads. These Earth-tier battle skills were beneath their notice, so even after they looked through these books, they didn't take them, which was convenient for Jian Chen. Jian Chen wasn't as overbearing as they were and began to store away all of the battle skills into his space ring. For the sake of the development of the flame mercenaries, these battle skills were essential. Despite the expansive cave, the items within were relatively scarce. Aside from a few things, there was nothing else to be seen. Qin Ji, Tianmuling, Dugufeng, and the yellow-robed girl had already scoured the entire cave and even had some choice words with the cave walls. Suddenly, a noise could be heard from outside the cave as two middle-aged men with blood pouring out their mouths flew into the cave before landing heavily on the ground. These two men were the men that Qin Ji and Tianmu had brought. Seeing their own men sent flying through the air, Qin Ji and Tianmu instantly grew dark in the face as an aura of killing intent could be felt being directed toward the entrance to the cave. A cyan-colored swordsman wearing black robes came walking in slowly as he argued angrily, "I can't enter. This cave isn't even yours, just what reason could you have for blocking me from entering?" As Ming Dong entered the cave, many people followed behind him including an embarrassed seniorin. Right behind him was a large crowd of people who began to crowd the place. "Who are you?" Qin Ji thundered at Ming Dong dangerously in an unfriendly manner. Ming Dong didn't even look at Qin Ji as he searched the 5 people in the cave before finally discovering Dugufeng and Jianchen. With a friendly wave, he spoke out, "Hey, Jianchen, Dugufeng, you two are here after all. It seems I found the right place after all." He spoke as he walked up to Jianchen and clasped onto Jianchen's shoulder as a sign of friendship. Seeing how Jianchen and Ming Dong were so close with each other, Tianmu and Qin Ji's faces both slowly eased up. Despite this, they were still filled with dissatisfaction at Ming Dong. That was because everyone had been allowed entry into the cave with the disturbance Ming Dong had created. Jianchen forced a smile on his face as he looked at the people behind Ming Dong as he whispered, "Why did you bring so many people in here?" Hearing this, Ming Dong suddenly had an embarrassed look on his face as he laughed awkwardly. "Jianchen, were those guards outside the cave's entrance a part of this group? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so rough." As he spoke, Ming Dong strolled over to where the stone table was and placed a leg on it. In the next second, something strange happened as the stone table where Ming Dong was stepping on slowly began to descend into the ground. Immediately leaping off the table, Ming Dong could only look on in astonishment as the table descended deeper into the ground before exclaiming, "WH, what's happening? I couldn't have activated some sort of mechanism, have I?" Even as Ming Dong spoke, the group of men in the cave all grew vigilant as they began to worry whether or not the mechanism that was activated would kill them. As the table descended into the ground, it was almost as if there was indeed a mechanism as Ming Dong had said. The cave began to shake as a muffled boom could be heard and a hidden stone door slowly started to rise up from the ground. "There must be a treasure inside, hurry up and enter before anyone else can. Hurry up and go in, there has to be the heaven-tier battle skill inside." The crowded cave of people quickly began to cry out loud as they charged toward the area. Jianchen and the others in the group didn't hesitate for even a moment. In an instant they quickly flew toward the stone door. In a blur of movements, Jianchen, Ming Dong, Qin Ji and the rest all disappeared from within the cave. The area past the stone doors was quite small, only a few men could stand inside. There seemed to be a single person resting inside and right above his head was a single fist-sized night pearl that seemed to endlessly pour out a ray of light that would never cease. As soon as several men entered this small cave, they immediately felt a tremendous amount of pressure coming at them from all angles. It was enough for everyone to suddenly become serious as their hearts could feel the shock. This cave was not a normal one. Right next to one of the walls was a single jade white bed. On the white bed, a single white skeleton could be seen maintaining a meditative position for an unknown amount of time. This entire skeleton exuded a fluorescent light from itself as well. Although it was only a skeleton, it was giving off an incredible amount of pressure. Even the faint amount of power that could be felt in the room was coming from this skeleton. "This is the skeleton of a saint ruler." Tianmu shouted out loud in shock at the skeleton. Qin Ji, Dugufeng, Ming Dong and the yellow-clothed girl all showed similar signs of shock at this newfound discovery. As they discovered the skeleton and felt shock overtake them, everyone soon quickly felt their blood begin to boil. In a single flash of movement of Qin Ji that caused a squall of wind to appear, he flew toward the skeleton. At the same time, Dugu Feng, Tian Muling, Ming Dong and the yellow-clothed girl all charged toward it. Ming Dong looked at the skeleton with his blood pounding in his veins. Immediately enwrapping himself in his wind-attributed saint force, his speed increased by a terrifying amount and instantly brought him closer to the skeleton. Without any hesitation, he placed his hand on the skeleton and quickly stored it into his space belt. Seeing that Ming Dong had collected the saint ruler's skeleton, Qin Ji, Tian Muling and even the yellow-clothed girl's face began to look exceedingly disappointed. Suddenly, a saw-tooth blade ruler armament appeared in Qin Ji's hand as a whip-like ruler armament appeared in Tian Muling's own hand as they both attacked Ming Dong. Dugu Feng sneered before pulling out his flame sword from his back before closing the distance between himself and Tian Muling to substitute for Ming Dong as a strong individual. Simultaneously, Jian Chen had already pulled out his light wind sword as he flew at Qin Ji. With a firm outreach, the light wind sword began to exude sword qi into the area around Qin Ji, causing him to be forced to pull back his ruler armament. On the other side, the already ready to strike longbow wielder saw that both Jian Chen and Dugu Feng were unexpectedly helping the one that had taken the saint ruler's skeleton. In an instant, she had realized that the relationship between these three were not ordinary at all and slowly withdrew her bow. Dugu Feng didn't hesitate in the slightest as he slashed his sword at Tian Muling, forcing her to use her barrier. Although it blocked his attack, the force behind the blow was enough to send her flying back. Jian Chen had no desire to fight against Qin Ji. As soon as he renounced his attack on Ming Dong, Jian Chen drew back as well as he gave an apologetic look to Qin Ji. After all, the man had just given him the pages to the heaven-tier battle skill. Jian Chen wasn't a man that would show ingratitude to one that helped him, so this attack held no force behind it. Qin Ji naturally realized the intent behind Jian Chen's attack and waved his hands in a disheartened manner. Fine, brother Jian Chen, I'll give you face, this saint ruler's skeleton I'll give up on. Despite the dissatisfaction in his heart, Qin Ji was secretly afraid of Jian Chen and did not wish to become an enemy of his. It was with great difficulty that he had established a decent friendship with Jian Chen, so he did not wish to ruin it all and become enemies over the saint ruler skeleton. Even if he had become enemies with Jian Chen, it was possible that he wouldn't receive anything and would share the same fate as Jiedo Wukong and Shi Xiangran. My apologies, brother Qin Ji. I hope I did not offend and that you will forgive me. Jian Chen cupped his hands in an apologetic manner toward him while confused at what just happened. Could a saint ruler's skeleton hold some sort of treasure? How infuriating. Such a good item was taken away by you. No, that won't do, I want compensation. Tian Muling seethed with rage toward Jian Chen and the other two. Right now her emotions had grown terrible, even her normal words of big brother were gone from her speech as she called out to Jian Chen in such an informal manner. Ming Dong turned to look at Tian Muling and Qin Ji before slowly walking up to Jian Chen. With a smile, he spoke with some emotion, Jian Chen, my luck was quite good after all, I've picked up a treasure. What is that good for? Jian Chen had to ask as he looked at Ming Dong with a look of pure concentration for an answer to his question. Chapter 324, Collapse of the Immortal's Cave, What is that good for? Jian Chen had to ask as he looked at Ming Dong with a look of pure concentration for an answer to his question. At this moment a loud commotion could be heard from behind as the entire crowd finally came into this room. In a flash, the small room was filled to the brim as even more people tried to get in until the room. It seemed as if the room was like a steamed bun and could not fill up anymore. In front of Jian Chen and the others, there was still a small empty space as everyone recognized who they were. They all knew of their strength and while they did not wish to be constantly pushed in from the others behind them, they did not wish to get close to Jian Chen and so they kept their distance in fear that getting any closer would mean their lives would be in jeopardy. Jian Chen, I'll explain it in full details later. But in short, we've got a treasure. Ming Dong spoke to Jian Chen. Jian Chen nodded his head calmly without another word as he stared with narrowed eyes at the group in front of them. In a split second, this small room had filled up with people and even more people were trying to get in. This had meant that if they wanted to get out it would be a problem. Suddenly, the entire cave began to shake as the ground shook as if there was an earthquake. As soon as the tremors started, a single fracture appeared within the cave before quickly expanding into multiple spider web-like cracks that filled every single corner of the cave. Dust began to fall from the roof as the cracks spread out, obstructing everyone's line of sight. This sudden development caused Jian Chen to grow startled. Right now, this cave was on the verge of collapsing in on itself. In contrast, those men from the outside had been rushing into the cave almost as if the heaven-tier battle skill was clouding their minds. They crowded inside the room as they shouted out for the battle skill. Despite so many people coming in, they didn't earn a single treasure. That was because this room only had the Saint Ruler's skeleton which was claimed by Ming Dong and nothing else. The tremors within the cave began to grow stronger as many stone fragments began to fall down from the ceiling. Even the walls to the cave were starting to crumble as stone slabs fell from them. Crap, the cave's going to collapse. It seems this cave took one too many attacks. The Saint Ruler skeleton must have been living in harmony with the cave, so once we took the skeleton, the pressure we felt earlier disappeared with it. The cave can't hold itself up any longer, Jian Chen. We have to get out right away. Ming Dong had learned a lot in his 1 year away from Jian Chen, so he had quickly figured out the relationship between the skeleton and the cave. Even Jian Chen's face grew serious as he looked at the group in front of him and yelled, "The cave is about to collapse, everyone hurry up and get out." Jian Chen's voice was almost like a horn that blasted everyone's ears like a thunderclap as he commanded them all to exit the cave. Those men who were blinded by the heaven-tier battle skill immediately regained their senses and realized the situation that they were in. Each one took on a look of shock as they all cried out, "Crap, the cave's collapsing, hurry up and get out or we all die here. Crap, it really is collapsing. Get out now. I don't want to die here. Whoever doesn't want to die needs to hurry up and get out of here." More and more people began to notice the strangeness of the situation and began to pale in the face. After several shouts, everyone began to charge for the exit to the outside world as if their lives depended on it. Many men had even been pushed to the ground and trampled in their rush to run out. "Fucker, who stepped on me? Hurry up and show yourself, do you wish to die? That's my hand you stepped on. Don't step on me." In this moment of panic, everyone had forgotten about the treasures in their rush to escape the cave. The cave was already dropping stone fragments from the roof. If they didn't escape soon, they would be buried deep underground. Following the group's exit, Jian Chen and the others began to fly straight out of the room as well now that the room was more spacious than before. The four corners of the cave continued to fracture, creating larger and larger cracks as the cave continued to tremble before a secret spot in the cave was suddenly revealed. Jian Chen's eyes flashed as he took notice of this sudden secret. A purple and gold box could be seen sitting inside a small hole. Within the dark and dusty room, the light given off by this box was extremely eye-catching. Jian Chen quickly flew toward the hidden site and quickly grabbed the purple and gold box into his space ring. By the time he was done with his actions, more and more secret spots within the walls began to show up. By this point, Ming Dong, Qin Ji, Tian Muling, Du Gufeng, and the yellow-clothed girl had already discovered the existence of these secret spots. Without hesitation, each one dove for the hidden spots and began to hurriedly collect the contents within their space belts. The few people that hadn't yet left the room had a few sharp-eyed men that saw this with a look of bliss and let out an ecstatic shout. Immediately dashing for the secret spots, one of them pulled out a single animal leather book. ADV, Advanced Earth Tier Battle Skill. Good heavens! I'm rich. The person cried out as he looked at the book with joy and unable to restrain his emotions. At this sound, many people turned around to look. This is an advanced earth tier cultivation method, it suits me perfectly. Another person cried out with the book in hand. Quickly, more and more people began to grab at the items within the secret spots. There were many things within the secret spots like space rings, cultivation method manuals, battle skills, and even several precious medicines. With several men all collecting the items, the secret spots within the cave were quickly cleared out. At that moment, a Earth Saint Master suddenly took out an unknown book before widening his eyes and slowly crying out in alarm, "Heaven!" As soon as that one word escaped his lips, he immediately came to his senses and clasped his mouth shut with his hand as he looked around himself in anxiety. A sudden flash of fire could be seen as Dugu Feng appeared by his body with his ruler armament straight through the man's chest. Taking the book in his hands, his eyes swept across the title before smiling, so it really is a heaven-tier battle skill. Hearing those words, Tian Muling put away the whip she had only just took out as she complained, "You all move far too fast, the good things were already taken away by you." Qin Ji put away his ruler armament as well as he shook his head and sighed. Even the longbow wielder had put away her own bow. An earth-tier battle skill was something that they all didn't care for, but a heaven-tier battle skill was something entirely different. To them, every single heaven-tier battle skill was capable of indirectly increasing the strength of their clans. Even saint rulers would covet heaven-tier battle skills at the same time. Those clans with ruler armaments would not dare to disregard them. If it were not for not Dugu Feng's reaction speed, then Qin Ji and his men would have been the ones that would have gained hold of the heaven-tier battle skill since they were the next closest people. Killing people for treasure after seeing such goods was a trivial matter that was common within the Tian Yuan continent. Seeing Dugu Feng begin to kill people for their items, everyone no longer had any desire to stay in this place and quickly ran toward the exit. Bang! 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 Several large pieces of stone began to fall and crash into the ground with a loud bang. Some parts of the cave had already collapsed while other parts of the cave continued to rain stone fragments down onto the ground. This place can't hold on for much longer, we better leave. Ming Dong spoke out in anxiety. The group began to fly toward the exit to the cave in a rush. Bang! A single 4-meter-tall stone fragment smashed into the ground right where the passageway was. Out of the way! A single roar could be heard from behind as Dugu Feng smashed the stone fragment, with his giant flame sword, into powder. Without hesitation, everyone charged through the dusty passageway in an attempt to run even faster than before. Soon enough, the group finally made it through the exit to the cave with everyone looking worse for wear. Not only were their clothes filled with dust, but even their faces had a layer of dirt on them that made them seem extremely dirty. "Phew, we're finally out, I thought we were going to be buried alive." Ming Dong exhaled as he dusted himself off. Right in front of them was the group that had pushed their way out earlier. A good majority of them were all dusty and had a good layer of dirt on them. Some of the more unfortunate great saint masters were even nursing their wounds from when the stone fragments fell on them. "Out of the way, get out of the way, you annoying." Suddenly, a voice that Jian Chen was all too familiar with could be heard. Jian Chen turned his head to look only to see Qin Shao pushing through several people in a hurry through the dust. "What's your rush, didn't you get enough from earlier? Or did you forget that you wanted to die? Fuck, so a lowly great saint master dares push me? You must be terribly impatient to die." Immediately, a loud group of men cursed in anger toward Qin Shao as the group of men that he had pushed began to prepare to find trouble with Qin Shao and start a fight. Qin Shao didn't bother to listen to the angry swears as he hurriedly looked all over the place. Soon enough, he saw Jian Chen and let out a sigh of relief before rushing on over to him. "Jian Chen, are you fine now? I heard that the cave collapsed, and since there were a lot of people in there, I began to worry." Upon seeing that Qin Shao and Jian Chen knew each other, the ones that had cursed at Qin Shao immediately went silent and obediently closed their mouths in fear that even a fart would come out of them. As for those who were prepared to fight with Qin Shao, they all went pale in the face and submissively retreated back into the crowd to blend in with it. By now, Jian Chen's fame and reputation had preceded him. He and the 5 experts were two matters on completely uneven footing. Jian Chen was someone everyone knew and didn't dare offend. After all, his fight against Zhigu was seen by everyone quite clearly. Not only was he able to kill him, but he was able to take on Zhigu's Earth-tier battle skills without any harm to his body. This was an entity that was far too strong for anyone to dare offend. The most important thing was that Shi Xiangran and Jieta Wukong of the 5 experts had died from within the cave. While only Qin Ji and a few others had seen the reason for their death, but these 2 men had grievances with Jian Chen. With that, it did not take much thought to connect the dots. Adding on to the fact that Jian Chen had chased Du Gufeng out of the cave, everyone could see the pattern from there. After all, the majority of the men there were all meticulous people. Although the heaven-tier battle skill had temporarily made their brains numb, this was not be proof that they were stupid. A heaven-tier battle skill was just too strong of an allure for them to resist. Seeing the deep look of concern on Qin Zhao's face, Jian Chen couldn't help but smile at him. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Ming Dong walked toward Qin Shao with a dusty face as he clasped onto Qin Zhao's shoulder. "Hey, brother Qin Shao. Still remember me?" Qin Shao quickly turned to look at the dusty and dirty face of Ming Dong, but the dirt concealed nothing from Qin Shao. His eyes quickly recognized Ming Dong's face and widened in surprise before shouting out loud in amazement, Ming Dong. Weren't you not going to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries? How are you here?" Ming Dong laughed. "I wasn't planning to, but then someone was looking for me, so I came along." "Someone was looking for you? Who?" Qin Shao spoke with confusion. "It's a long story, let us wait for us to find an empty place before we talk. Come, Qin Shao, let me introduce you to everyone." Ming Dong grabbed onto the flame sword-wielding Du Gufeng and pulled at him. "Brother Qin Shao, this is the newest member of our group, Du Gufeng. From now on he will be a fellow brother." Qin Shao was taken back for a moment before quickly resuming his straightforward attitude and greeted Du Gufeng enthusiastically. Du Gufeng replied with a smile. Qin Ju, who had just pushed his way out from behind, had overheard the entire conversation with a look of utter disbelief. He didn't dare believe what he had just heard, but he didn't see Du Gufeng say anything in objection and had even replied back to Qin Shao with a smile. In the end, Qin Ju could only choose to accept this as the truth, but his heart was still filled with doubts. Du Gufeng was one of the 5 experts and simultaneously had a clan behind him that had even the Tianqin clan's respect. Just how could a person like this suddenly become so close to Jian Chen? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.